Sports reports, no gimmicks, no clowns. 2-5, Mr. Logical, we run this town. Real talk only, no chaser, no doubt. From the east to the west, it's the order we shout. Mic check, lights flash, game time, stay ready. 2 vets in the zone, keep the pressure real heavy. Big hits, big plays, yeah, we breaking it down. Truth rings in your speakers, every word is the crown. From the north side hustle to that southern flame. Midwest grind, west coast of the game. Sports talk kings, yeah, we wear that crown. Turn it up, let them know it's about to go down. Sports reports, no gimmicks, no clowns. 2-5, Mr. Logical, we run this town. Real talk only, no chaser, no doubt. From the east to the west, it's the order we shout.
It's about to go down.
Hey.
Yes. You are now listening to the sounds of Sports Reports Assorted, brought to you by the one and only world-famous, world-renowned, cool, calm, and collected. Born in Texas, raised in Virginia, representing everything the rules. And all he told me on good authority was, if you can make it in Jersey, you can make it anywhere.
Anywhere.
You know,
it's not for the weak.
He is Mr. Logical. And then, of course, down here in the Alamo, it is I, your unorthodox statistician, going left so much you thought I was southpaw. Sorry, Manny Pacquiao. I go by the name of 2-5. We here tonight is the AFC North preview. We're going to get into some college football reaction. And then, of course, I don't know if you've been looking at the calendar or not, but there's 2 NFL games during the week this week. So we're going to talk about both of those. But real quick, do me a favor out there. Like, review, subscribe, share, rate. Do all the free things. Do all the good things. Grab you a Liquid Death, please. Preferably Berry Buzzsaw. And let's get right to it. So, Mr. Logical.
I'm listening.
You know I try, and I fail very often, but I try not to do the hyperbole thing. But I got to start off the show with a little hyperbole.
Okay.
Is it Super Bowl or bust for Baltimore?
We say it every year. They never look poor enough to really get rid of anybody. So I'd say no. I mean, maybe from a personal, they might feel it inside the building. But we talked about it. So many things have to bounce in your favor for you to win the Super Bowl. Now, as we get throughout the season and things are clicking and they get into the playoffs, so the week the playoffs start, if they're whole, then it's like, okay, you have done enough to get to this point. But a 18-week, 17-game NFL season with buys, suspensions, trades, what have you, it's just hard to say, hey, going into the season, you got to get all the way to the promised land that happens in February, and we're sitting at September 2nd. I think they're always going to have the pieces. I'll save that for the playoff run. Because if, for instance, the past couple of years, Kansas City has not looked good offensively going into the playoffs. So Baltimore is like, you've been explosive offensively the last 2 years. This is your year to take Kansas City out. But that was based off all the information we had collected for a whole season. You just got to see how some stuff plays out. I know it's kind of a cop-out answer. But,
it is.
I mean, it's a cop-out, but I mean, I'll keep it a bean when the information is there. But I don't think anybody loses their job unless they go 9-8. Then somebody might lose their job. But more likely, because of the talent, they're gonna go 12-5, 12-5, 13-4, somewhere in that range. Is it clicking? Are you really winning? Or is Lamar putting up 35, 40 touchdowns like he did last year?
See, I want to agree. I want to agree in theory, right? But I can't. You know what I'm saying? Because look, Baltimore does all the right things. They draft well. They're one of the best drafting teams in the league. So they got the youth movement. And not only do they have the youth movement, they develop these players too. You know, they go out and get trades and free agents. They bring in people like Roquan Smith. They went and got Jair Alexander off the scrap heap. So, last year, one of their weaknesses was Brandon Stevens got a little bit better provided that he can stay on the field. So then you got Derrick Henry, 1,900 yards last year. The focus was all on Saquon, but we were this close to having 2,000-yard rushers in the league last year. They had the AFC Championship game at home just a mere 2 years ago. And all Lamar Jackson needed to do was do what his critics say that he does too much. Run the football. When the pocket breaks down, when Chris Jones is bringing the heat, you get out of there because he can't catch you. And he couldn't do that. So then we fast forward to last year, the game up in Buffalo, because nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. But everybody is focused on the Mark Andrews drop in the end zone on the 2-point conversion that would have just tied the game. Wasn't going to give him the lead. It was just going to tie it. But we forget that Lamar fumbled and Buffalo got points off of that. He threw the pick that, you can't explain. Maybe the receiver ran the wrong route. Maybe that happened. Okay. But we've been waiting on Lamar Jackson to have a signature playoff performance back-to-back, or at least consistency, for years. So for me, I'm not trying to say anybody's going to get fired or anything along those lines, but it's time to shit or get off the pot and don't watch Buffalo take care of Kansas City before you do.
See, that's the thing. For me, I don't subscribe to that notion that you got to make it happen because it's 32 teams. I can't have that in September for multiple teams, considering I'm a fan of a different team. I can't say it's Super Bowl or bust for Baltimore and still hope my team wins the Super Bowl.
Because your team ain't doing shit.
Listen, we ain't talking about that yet. You know what I'm saying? When they get on a nice little run and I'm wearing my Falcons gear again and I'm ordering new jerseys, then I'm back on it. But until then, they gotta earn my money. But like I said, I understand that you want to see more from Lamar in these big games. But he had some adversity in the Buffalo game. But he did claw him back. He did stay level-headed. We've seen that not happen before. So at a minimum, that progress happened. It's just Mark Andrews dropped the 2-point conversion. It's unfortunate. But like I said, shit like that happens. Say he was playing a great game and the score was 35-34 and they were going for the win. And Mark Andrews drops that ball. The result's still the same. We're like, oh, he played great, but they still lost. He didn't do enough. So I'm saying, so it's like,
I don't know. That's Tony
damned
Romo
if you do,
about
damned
that.
if you don't. Never was the same again after that drop. Like dropping that kick, that whole, he was never the same after that. Even though like he had the rest of his career. Like I said, I understand the pressures on Lamar. I think of the AFC North quarterbacks, ironically, he might have the least amount of pressure because I think he's in the most comfortable situation. Because I think they can just roll their team out there and do what they do every week. It's not that many holes. You talk about Jair Alexander. I think he's currently injured, needs to get on the field. He was having that issue in Green Bay. But Baltimore is going to run out there, and it's going to feel like Terrell Suggs and Nada and Saragusa and Ray Lewis are out there with the style that they play. So they could do that every week. So I think of the AFC North quarterbacks, he probably has the least amount of pressure. So I think that'll help them going forward. But as far as like Super Bowl or bust, I don't know. I just feel like too much has to happen. I mean, like DeMar Hamlin literally died on the field, and then he was there to make the ankle grab on Lamar 2 years later. So it's like, I mean, the craziest shit happens in football.
So speaking of quarterbacks,
from there to the result, yeah.
I still don't know what the hell's going on in Cleveland.
I
So
don't think so either. I don't think they know either. You sent me the clip of the assistant GM. She seemed either flustered because of the heat or the sunlight, or she just not good at public speaking because I had no idea what she was talking about.
No, I think Scott, I think Buffalo has to be the favorite. I think it's Buffalo because I mean, even when you just look at the schedules, right? Because the AFC North is playing the NFC North this year. So, so those records are going to be a little bit different this year, I think, overall, just because of the competition. So Buffalo should finish 12-5, 13-4, especially when you look at the rest of that division. Buffalo could sweep that division, provided that, they don't rest players later in the season or whatever. But they could literally sweep that division. So I think the AFC still runs through Orchard Park, right now.
Mine still runs through middle of America. It runs through Arrowhead.
Yeah, I know.
Until otherwise,
we'll get to that on Friday.
Until we see something different.
But back to Cleveland, so Joe Flacco is going to get the start this weekend against Cincinnati. You figure Dylan Gabriel's the backup, and young Prime is probably either on the practice squad or maybe they'll dress him up. So I can't sit here with a straight face and say that Joe Flacco is going to finish the season as a starter, because we know how this goes. You know what I mean? Like, he comes out, he might have a quick 300-yard game, and people say, look, Joe Flacco turned back the hands of time. And then before you know it, it comes 30-13. Pick, And so when I look at it, I don't get the point. You know what I mean? Because I know that there's been this debate over the years of should you sit your young quarterback and let him absorb versus throwing him into the fire. But I don't see what playing Joe Flacco does for you. I just don't get it.
You play Joe Flacco because Joe Flacco understands down and distance, game situations, audible, the crowd, the pressure. He has the experience. He will keep you in games where you could win them potentially 21-20, 24-20. Like, he'll keep you in the game to where it's not going well. He can steady the ship. You're not going to rattle him. Whereas these two young guys might not be ready for that moment, which is fine. The expectation for rookie quarterbacks to all be ready is unlikely. Joe Flacco was ready when he came out. Matt Ryan, Matthew Stafford, Sam Bradford wasn't. Zach Wilson wasn't. Bo Nix seems to be ready. CJ Stroud seems to be ready. Bryce Young wasn't. Needed a little bit of time to kind of sit back the second year, get a couple of games on the bench, regroup, come back out there. I think the problem with Cleveland is that I don't think they've ever approached their quarterback situation logically in the offseason. I think they're stuck between two stories they're telling themselves. We have a good enough defense to – what's going on, Zach? He has a good enough defense to maintain these games and get points if we have a quarterback that doesn't turn the ball over. We have a quarterback that's on the bench that we're paying a lot of money to. Oh, this guy Kenny Pickett's available. He's young. Oh, Flacco wants to come back. I just think that there wasn't enough people in the room to say, stop. What are we doing? Because there's no reason. I mean, just the draft alone, Shador and Dylan Gabriel should not have been drafted to the same team. It just doesn't make any sense. It's different when we had the RG3 and Kirk Cousins. RG3 was a top pick. Kirk Cousins was a fourth-round pick. They didn't have any veterans on the roster. So it was like, okay, cool. Let's get young at quarterback, teach them both simultaneously, and let the more athletic, highly touted Heisman winners start. You didn't have that with Dylan Gabriel and Shador. Yeah, you had a Heisman finalist, but he was never viewed as a starting quarterback. But you take him in the third round when you didn't need to. I don't think anybody else is going to take him. I thought Miami should have been the one looking out for him because they have an undersized left-handed quarterback, and I think that would have been a seamless transition. But Cleveland, I feel like they just took players in the draft, those two players, just so other teams didn't take them. And then when they had them, had no idea what to do with them. Like, listen, Joe Flacco doesn't need all the first-team reps. He's 40 years old. He knows, like, listen, man, let me get 27 throws out here. I'm going to go over here, do these interviews, keep my arm loose. Let these guys see if they can handle first-team defense reps. And they just didn't do it. It's a very odd structure how they handled it.
Well,
I think it was a poor choice.
So to Scott's point, I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, I feel like Kenny Pickett could have did that, from the standpoint of if Dylan Gabriel's not ready, if Shador Sanders is a 5th-round draft pick that's going to need development or whatever the case may be. At the very least, play Kenny Pickett. He has a good season, maybe. Trade him for something better than you probably got from the Raiders anyway.
Kenny Pickett had, 3 years in Pittsburgh? About 3-4 seasons, I believe. So Cleveland probably played him 5 or 6 times, depending on
why they bring him in the first place?
They probably thought, okay, maybe he's not as bad as we when we played him. Maybe our defense.
But they didn't even get to see him really.
They probably saw enough of him. You can tell.
No, I'm just meaning like he was injured and stuff. So it's not as if
it was like
got a good look to go.
How you get injured here?
Or not.
We ain't even pads yet. We in t-shirts. How you injured in a t-shirt? How you injured in a t-shirt with your
off, Craig?
Yeah, like how you letting 2 rookies take? And honestly, like we said this before, and I don't know if we said on the show, definitely in conversation, was like, there's no way they were going to keep the 2 vets because Kenny Pickett wants to start. He feels he's a starter. Joe Flacco's not going to back up Kenny Pickett because he feels he's better than him. And the 2 rookies needed some time. So, like, Flacco or Pickett were going to go. And I figured Pickett would be the guy because Pickett's the new guy. Pickett's the new guy with no leverage.
Too, but I just don't like it.
I figured it.
I like it. Wasting time and kicking the can down the road.
Well, if you, like I said, if you think Joe Flacco and Stefanski can get you 23 points and your defense is stout, you took another All-American defensive lineman in the top 5. You put him next to Myles Garrett, who's pretty much a creative player. You know, you have like guys like Newsom, your secondary stuff. You figure if we can hold teams, the Russell Wilson, remember the Denver year when
if you're the Browns,
they had when Russell Wilson, like if they would have scored 17 points the first 6 weeks, they'd have been undefeated. I think they're looking at it that like, if we can get to 21 to 23 points, we can win games.
So if you're the Browns, what's the goal for this year from a record standpoint? Or you just roll with it regardless. You don't really have a goal.
The goal is that, the goal, so the media gets off your back and your fans get off your back, is to have a really good year. 10-7. If you can get to 11-6. It's crazy. I know, I don't believe it, but I think they believe that. I think they believe that Flacco can get us the 3 touchdowns that we need to win these games. I don't think Dylan Gabriel, or I don't think Shador. I think Shador, because he has a tendency to want to make the big play. I think in a 10-10 game in the second quarter, week 3, he might roll too many times and get sacked for a 17-yard loss.
And guess what?
Now it's 3rd and
27. Flacco's going to throw the pick.
I'd rather the pick go this way versus 3rd and 27 because
I'll take
now
3rd
you got to throw another one and you're probably going to throw a pick then anyway.
I don't want to give up the pick 6.
I just feel like it's less I just feel like Dylan Gabriel.
He's got Schaub status at this point.
Dylan Gabriel, I don't know if it's the arm strength or the size. He's going to have to slide in the pocket. I think that takes a little extra time. I think defense are going to key in on that. They figure listen, these 2 guys will make catastrophic mistakes, and you just hope Joe Flacco won't do it twice.
So the good news is if you were to play, Dylan Gabriel or Shador, the good news is you get to play the Cincinnati Bengals twice, because they're bringing back this defense. I know they got rid of the defensive coordinator. We talked about that the other day because he's over in Indianapolis now. So they're bringing in Al Golden from Notre Dame. He was on the Bengals staff a few years ago as a linebackers coach. He's been a tight end coach throughout the NFL. This is his first time as a full NFL defensive coordinator. So the Bengals, you look at it, they had this Shamar Stewart drama. They did extend Trey Hendrickson. Sam Hubbard retired. So you're kind of right back to square one, just hoping that young players can step in. But the problem with that defensive coordinator was they were on the Laker plan where I need you to come in here and be ready. I ain't got time to develop you. So now you're bringing in a coach with a lot of college experience. Maybe you're getting some of that developmental piece now. But like we were talking about Miami, they looked way better than we thought that the Hurricanes, way better than we thought they could. I don't know if you could turn this around in a year.
I mean, the difference is they're NFL players. They've been there. It's not a bunch of transfers. It's not a bunch of new bodies. It's not a bunch of new people who have to acclimate to each other, acclimate to the environment. It's guys that have been there. They understand the lack of facilities. They understand that their owners are cheap. They understand what's going on in Cincinnati. And you have, appreciate it, and you have a top quarterback and a top wide receiver, probably the best quarterback wide receiver tandem in the league right now. Coupled with your wide receiver 2, I know people don't rank him that way, is probably one of the
best wide receiver 2 in the league.
Exactly. He's probably better than a lot of teams' wide receiver 1. So this is a situation where their defense has to keep it under 25. If we could keep teams at 25 to 26 points per game, I think Flacco and Jamar Chase can get us 28 to 29 a game.
All right.
This is that remember the Indy defense with Bob Sanders? It was like, listen, just bend, don't break, force field goals in the red zone, don't give up touchdowns every drive that gets to the red zone. We'll get the ball back. We're going to make big plays. We can get to 28 points with this offense. You guys got to keep the defense under the offense under 25.
All right, stay there for a quick second. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So real quick, we'll try to do this real quick. I got 6 teams that gave up more points per game than the Bengals last year. How many of them do you think you can name?
Points per game. I'd just try to fire off a few. The Panthers.
Yes.
The Falcons.
No.
The Cardinals.
No. Hey, Cardinals were top 11.
Cleveland.
Yes.
Tampa Bay.
No. All right. So
New Orleans.
No. So we got Jacksonville, Cleveland, San Francisco. Of course, San Francisco was injured. Tennessee, Dallas, and Carolina. You know, those were the teams that gave up more points per game than the Bengals last year. But that's not to say that it was all bad, because
what was the number? What was that number last year for Cincinnati?
For Cincinnati, it was 25.6.
All right, get it to 23.5, and you probably win.
Well,
you win a lot of games.
Talk last year, right? When Kansas City sat the starters at Mile High in the last game of the season, there were people telling us with straight faces, Kansas City did that on purpose so they could avoid Cincinnati. I never heard such bullshit in my life.
Listen, if I'm thinking about it, I wouldn't want Cincinnati in the playoffs. It's not like Kansas City had like this humming offense that could really take advantage of the Cincinnati defense.
Nobody's scared of the Bengals.
Listen, Jamar Chase and was Triple Crown last year. Joe Burrow would have been the MVP if they had 11 wins versus 9. I definitely feel like Kansas City was like, because we know Kansas. A lot of other people are rattled when they get to Arrowhead. Joe Burrow played a good game. The AFC
Arrowhead, right?
And like, listen, I would rather chase Keon Coleman, Zay Flowers, Amari Cooper. I'd rather chase those guys around.
I think Kansas City was more like
versus T.
I would
Higgins
be
and
pretty
Jamar
damn
Chase.
upset if Patrick Mahomes got hurt in this game that we don't even need. I think that was
that too. Yeah, I think that's more. But I'm pretty sure they did. Like, for instance, if they could have played and they could have avoided Cincinnati in like the first round for whatever that. It's like, hey, you can play and get up to the 2 seed and not play Cincinnati, or you can stay at the 4 seed and have to play Cincinnati. I think they would have played.
Well, you know what? Tell Cincinnati to stop starting 0-3 and 1-4, and we won't even have to have these thoughts of conversation.
Don't lose to New England.
So then
you can't lose New England 16-10.
So then you got the Steel City, blue blood NFL program, Sixburg. Mike Tomlin never had a losing season. So then he went and got a quarterback with a losing personality. And you know what I mean? They went out and did some other things. They went and got DK Metcalf. They paid TJ Watt. They brought in Caleb Johnson during the draft, who I like a lot. Will Howard to learn from Aaron Rodgers, I suppose. I don't know what the Steelers are trying to accomplish, because I think of the Steelers as a franchise that is all about championships. And granted, they're not in a position to win a championship at this given moment in time. But I don't think Aaron Rodgers at this stage gets you any closer to that.
I think it's a lot like what Cleveland feels in Joe Flacco. We aren't in a position for a rebuild. We are in a position to where some games on our schedule we can definitely win just based off our talent here. And this guy is going to ensure we win like a couple of the other games. I think Aaron Rodgers, I don't know how difficult it is for him to play football at 40. I assume it's quite difficult considering 22 and 23-year-old quarterbacks are just fucking throwing the ball all over the place. And guys are being left off of rosters. It must be highly difficult.
He be shroomed out. He fine.
I mean, like, listen, you sit in the dark room long enough, you get your thoughts together. I just feel like Pittsburgh, they can't rebuild, and they might be prisoners of their own success. I think Tomlin having so many consistently above average years, they never stop to say, you know what? It's time to clean house and start over because he's been tenured so long. You'd have to start over like completely, and that might even include a new coach because you can't get rid of, because normally when you start over, you get rid of your leadership. Hayward, Watt, that means you wouldn't have brought in Aaron Rodgers,
Jalen Ramsey,
like all these veteran guys, you would have just gone with Porter Jr. and a lot of the young corners. Will Howard, maybe you take a quarterback a little higher, and then you take whatever that season comes. If you end up 7-10 in your rebuild year, but you can't do that with Mike Tomlin. I think that's why they brought in Aaron Rodgers, because it's like, we don't want to waste one of Mike Tomlin's good years.
I mean, it makes sense
once he goes, your rebuild starts.
Yeah, I mean, I would take Aaron Rodgers over Joe Flacco in that type of situation. But, so as we get to it, I'm going to just go ahead and throw it out there. Obviously, lo and behold, I'm picking the Ravens to win the division. So I have no reason to do otherwise at this point. We'll reevaluate, as you say, when the information changes. But, so let's look up the Ravens here. So, so we mentioned, the Ravens do their thing as far as the draft goes. They bring in players. They have good coaches on their staff. So the Ravens are always a threat. Like when you think about the teams that actually going like historically, the teams that the Ravens won the Super Bowl with, you kind of look at those teams and they weren't even favorites that year, or, they probably weren't even in your top three, when you were looking at it. But the culture in Baltimore breeds success. John Harbaugh's been there for quite some time now. They're getting Keaton Mitchell back off of the ACL, even though I think he's going to probably be a returner instead of in the backfield now. They drafted Mike Green, the NCAA leader in sacks last year, 17 sacks. Yeah. He had the off-the-field issues that caused him to go so low. And just like Jihad Mitchell, my reaction was, how the hell did y'all let him fall to Baltimore?
Yeah.
They lost Darius Washington during the spring, so that could be a big blow. But I'm trying to figure out, if Jair Alexander can't go, who's going to fill the role of that other corner? Because Brandon Stevens is gone. They brought in Chidobe Awuzie. And, I like TJ Tampa out of Iowa State that they drafted a few years ago. Nate Wiggins and Marlon Humphrey still out there. So Baltimore was number one against the run last year. And when I think of Baltimore, I think of Mike Tyson. Because when you go back and look at the stats, they are the team that jumps on you early. They score a lot in the first quarter. So if you can just hang around a little bit, like you get yourself a greater chance the longer you can stick around, but they can bury you real quick. So Mr. Logical, starting off at Orchard Park, man. What you thinking?
Baltimore seems to handle Buffalo in the regular season. We talked about the game where they bounced Josh Allen's head off the carpet and he was out for a second, but he didn't miss a snap. I think they'll handle that game just fine. Buffalo was, I don't want to say it's fool's gold, but they were relying heavily on Josh Allen. And I don't think they made too many moves to kind of limit that responsibility for him. Excuse me. So, and, for whatever it's worth, you can go with the revenge game, whatever the case may be. I felt like in the second half of that playoff game, Baltimore really put the kibosh on Buffalo, because when he boiled down to it, it wasn't much. It was Josh Allen wearing a Superman cape the entire playoff run. Hence why on the fourth down to KC, he had the ball in his hand, because they just relied so heavily on him. And I think in the game, like I said, that second half of the playoff game, Baltimore figured it out. They had a couple of third down conversions, kept drives going as far as Buffalo. But I think Baltimore handled that game, and I think Buffalo starts off 0-1, losing at home to Baltimore.
Well, so I think that this should be, for all intents and purposes, perfect world. People are healthy. This should be the AFC Championship game. It's just a matter of who's going to host it. So I'm going to go with the home team. We'll get more into that Friday when we do previews. But looking at their schedule here, they come off of Buffalo, go right into a division game. But luckily for them, it's the division game you probably want to go into.
Yeah.
Since Cleveland's going to be coming off of playing Cincinnati. You get Detroit at home. So I like it being at home. And then you go to Arrowhead. And remember, last time Baltimore went to Arrowhead, Isaiah likely had his Kevin Durant moment, where his shoe was just a little bit too big and a little bit too white.
Too big.
Yeah, it was too white. He had on the white shoes that matched with the line. So, no, it was the other way. He had on
black shoes.
We
clearly see it. Yeah.
Right. You could clearly see it. So, yeah. So I think that this is a tough first month. But if there is a team that could get through it, it would be the Ravens. So, so I'm looking at these first 6 games, and I think that if you can get the 4-2, and I think 5-1 is a real possibility, but if you can get the 4-2 at least, I think you set yourself up for something special coming down the road, because no disrespect, Scott, but coming off that bye week, saying you get the Bears, and then it gets kind of, we don't believe in Miami. Yeah, we don't believe in Miami.
It gets easy. It gets Super Bowl or bust conversations easy starting Halloween.
Yeah, because I figure
I'm looking at 7-1.
Like theoretically speaking, by the time they get to this Cincinnati game, I could see 10-2. I could see 10-2, unless, because this is the NFL.
They have one of those weeks.
Yeah, maybe you get caught slipping in Minnesota or something. But, I don't know if J.J. McCarthy can
think Miami might catch you slipping with the speed if they're on one. Like if Tua is, because we know Tua's an accurate quarterback. If they're on one and guys are clicking and the track stars are being track stars, because, they've drafted multiple guys that run – 4.3s. So if they can they're all undersized, but if they can get these guys on the field and get the ball in their hand, that might be the game you get tripped up.
Yeah, and then you got your,
this is the first place schedule.
What's that?
This is the first place schedule.
Yeah.
How?
I mean, you still get Detroit.
Because they're playing the AFC East. They're playing the AFC East and NFC North.
Yeah. And then, you got this three-peat or this, division game, right? Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, at Cincinnati. So 2 of those at home. So you figure if you could go 2-1 in that stretch, you're good to go. But Pittsburgh and Baltimore, and I will say this until I know everybody loves Duke, North Carolina basketball, but for my money, the Ravens and the Steelers are the best rivalry in sports. For
really.
Me. Yes,
that's high praise.
I mean, when you look at the games, like
you got a higher You got to higher than Commanders, Cowboys, Eagles,
bro.
the whole
No,
NFC East. You think
bro.
that's is
The NFC East is so 1980s. You know what I mean? Like ever since free agency came around, you know what I mean? Like those games just don't seem. I mean, for me personally, like say it's up with the Cowboys all day, all 365. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like when you watch the players interact, the games, it just doesn't have that same intensity. When I see Ravens and Steelers, it's literally I'm trying to prove that I'm tougher than you. You know what I mean?
Joey Porter and Ray Lewis still got a beef.
And speaking of Joey Porter, I feel so sorry for that dude, Joey Porter Jr., because he gets called for all the pass interference calls that Sauce Gardner doesn't get called for. So I don't even know how that works.
Just keep playing your game, young man, because if you get the interception, they don't call pass interference.
Yeah, then they close out with New England at Lambeau and then at Pittsburgh. So depending on where they are in the division race, will determine, how they play.
What's their neutral field? Do they have a neutral field game?
I believe they did. Let's see here. Let me go back here. I don't see any asterisks. So
I think it just was like it's probably just a standard thing that they put on there.
But also, the other thing that Baltimore got, was Malachi Starks in the draft. Putting him next to Kyle Hamilton, they kind of become an interchangeable duo of hell that you have to deal with. So, so Baltimore, where they have weaknesses, they are covered because their corners are, you're waiting for Wiggins to take off. Humphrey, I think, is a little iffy. He's a little overrated. And then you're waiting for that third corner to emerge. On last year, coming into last season, my big concern about Baltimore was the offensive line. But they played well throughout the season, got that experience, building some chemistry now. So
1,800 yards for Henry.
Yeah, so I feel pretty comfortable. So, like, I can see Baltimore, worst case scenario, absolute worst case scenario is 11-6. But I lean more towards that 12-5.
12-5, 13-4 is realistic.
Yeah.
But like I said, if they rest people.
Yeah. So then we'll take it over to the Queen City. Not to be confused with Charlotte, but they call Cincinnati the Queen City as well. So let's pull up the Bengals schedule here. And look, the Bengals are one of those teams where it's like the whole Pandora's box, right? Like they could beat anybody, they could lose to anybody. So this week 2 game, they could get outscored by Jacksonville if Jacksonville has a good game, but then they could turn around and win at Mile High too. So with the Bengals, it's kind of topsy-turvy. So remember earlier we were talking about the points that the Bengals gave up last year. What I found odd was they gave up 6 more points in their home games than they did their road games. That's just odd to me.
Because I think their home facilities suck. When they practice at home, they don't have an outdoor practice facility. The building sucks. I'm pretty sure the locker room's not great. I think it got rated pretty low and just like player amenities and stuff like that. It probably sucks being at home in Cincinnati.
Yeah, so you remember how we talk about how the Steelers are 1-11 in games that TJ Watt doesn't play. Well, the Bengals were 3-7 in the games that T. Higgins didn't play. But what they did get last year out of all the injuries, because remember, Zach Moss was the starter to start the season. He got hurt, go Utes. But then they brought in Chase Brown, who I was a big fan of in his draft class out of Illinois. And he went for, 1,300 yards from scrimmage. It didn't even start the first 4 games. So they found a running back, I think. We were looking at that because they had let Joe Mixon go. So it was, who's going to take over? Can somebody step up? And are the Bengals going to run the ball enough? You talked about the Triple Crown, Jamar Chase, first Triple Crown winner since Cooper Kupp back in 2021. So they're getting Cam Sample back from his injury on defense. They're bringing in TJ Slayton. But what hurts for me for Cincinnati is they lost Jermaine Pratt. He requested a trade. He's a Raider now. And the only reason I bring him up is not the 143 tackles that he had last season, but I just remember going to Mile High a few years ago and he was about the only person on the defense that was worth a damn. You know, like you talk about how dudes jump off the screen at you. He was just involved in everything. So I'm interested to see how their defense will look without him. They got Demetrius Knight from South Carolina, so we'll see, you know, how that goes. Dax Hill is back from injury, so you're getting a top level, well, a medium level cornerback.
Yeah.
You know, but they definitely need Geno Stone to be, you know, what we thought his name was going to represent when he came to Cincinnati. You know, but so Cincinnati's defense is just Trey Hendrickson. The way you were talking about how Buffalo is reliant on Josh Allen, you know, the Bengals are reliant on Trey Hendrickson to get loose and cause chaos.
Yeah, but Smart getting the deal done. The problem is you let him sit for months and not practice and not stretch and not, you know, work
same
off
thing with
the
the rookie.
offseason. You know, like same thing. So like they could have had them both in there learning the same way. I'm pretty sure Mason Graham is just absorbing information from Myles Garrett on how to play this technique, how to get off this block. When he wants to do this, I need you to do that. If I need you to slam down hard on this guard, pause, so I can shoot this gap, whatever. All that information is being exchanged because the money wasn't an issue. Getting people in the camp wasn't an issue. Getting acclimated to working in the NFL environment was an issue. Cincinnati didn't give themselves the full extent of that. So it could cause a problem. Or maybe he catches on quick. Maybe he transfers quickly from Texas A&M to Cincinnati Bengals.
Because that was the knock on him in the first place, is that he's very raw. Like he gets the pressure, but he never actually gets the sack. He doesn't finish.
Well, maybe if somebody can tell him, like, listen, when you get here, now plant this foot, push up field, and then come flat down the line.
And that's why I like Al Golden.
Instead of trying to come around for the strip sack, like.
And that's why I like Al Golden being the college coach, you know, because, you know, in that developmental phase, that's a part of his mentality versus an NFL coach that sort of expects you to have certain things figured out. You know, I think Al Golden is probably more prone to walk through some of these things.
Let the veterans walk the rookies through, like, you know,
right.
Very much team captain leadership. Like, hey, I've been here a few years.
But I can see a 3-0 start here. I can see a 3-0 start. But of course, Joe Burrow, that's dependent on Joe Burrow, because we always talk about how he gets out the gate pretty slow. I mean, they lost to New England and Jacoby Brissett to start the season last year. They went 0-3. So, but this is something that they do. You know,
he looked like he was getting terrorized by the Commanders.
Yeah, and that offensive line isn't any better. And you know, but Jacksonville week 2, you know, still trying to figure out the new system and everything. You know, trying to learn how to say Duval, you know, with their, you know, man voice.
Duval.
You know, so you got that. Then they get JJ McCarthy. They get JJ McCarthy, and it looks like Justin Jefferson is banged up. You know, so who knows the extent of that? They got Monday Night Football this week, so
he's not missing that Cincinnati game. So Jamar Chase can text him.
But then it gets real after that. It gets real. They go to Mile High, and you remember they played Denver in a classic last year on that Saturday game. You know, where, you know, my guy Mims, you know, he announced himself to the NFL, Broncos receiver. But they go to Mile High this time for Monday Night Football. They get Detroit and then go to Lambeau. Then they come off of that with Pittsburgh. So that 3-0 could go up in flames real quick if it starts out 3-0.
Yeah, you know, I'm not big on this Denver buffet. Everybody's slopping up. So I got
Denver.
I got 4-0.
Okay.
I got 4-0. We'll see how Detroit goes. I think
I'm looking at 4-3 after those first 7.
After the first 7,
yeah,
I'm gonna give them. I think Detroit to give them problem just because the way they deploy their speed. I think that can confuse any defense, and even if you're there, just the speed, the way they use Amon-Ra and the way they use Laporta. I think that'll be their problem game. Green Bay, we got to see how the young receivers work, because, like I said, they still, no matter how much we love Green Bay, They still don't have a traditional season number one wide receiver.
Yeah, I saw that they listed Golden as their number one on the depth chart today.
Yeah, so they have speed, they have talent, but Cincinnati, 3rd and 7. Jamar's down there somewhere. T. Higgins over there somewhere. One of these guys can make a play, and they know that drive in and drive out. I'm not sure if the same thing you could say for Green Bay, so that could be a toss-up. Pittsburgh, we got to see how it works out. If it's one of those seasons where Pittsburgh is really just trying to steady the ship, 20, 21, 23 points a game, and they're just trying to hold teams down with defense, that could be a game where Jamar just slips. Cover 3, he breaks it, or if they slip cover 2 and he runs a post from the slot. Anything that just happens that just Joe Burrow gets enough time and he finds the number 1 jersey deep downfield. We saw what he did to Baltimore. He had Jamar Chase had 3 games of 13 or 14 catches, over 170 yards, and it had never happened in the NFL before. He did it 3 times, twice against Baltimore. So it's they are dynamic. If their defense, since they got Hendrickson back, because I didn't think they were going to sign him. I thought they were going to. I didn't think they would be as bad as Dallas, but I thought they were going to it was going to go to where he wasn't going to get his extension. They were going to have to trade him, but people would understand it because he's almost 30. He's up there in age. He's not a young defensive end, but they made the deal happen. So I think him there, getting with Stewart, new defensive coordinator. Listen. Keep it under 24 points, 23.9 points a game. You can start off the season after the first 9 weeks, 7-2 realistically.
And of course, going back to last season, they lost both games to Baltimore by something like a combined, 5 points. They lost the first one in overtime. They had a field goal that they missed in overtime. Baltimore converted a field goal on the other end, won that game. And then on Thursday Night Football, there was the 2-point conversion that they failed on. Little interference probably, but,
little holding, yeah.
But you reversed just probably one of those 2 wins, and that's a playoff team last year. It was the game of inches, right? Pause. And then, you know what I mean? So you got the Jets and Bears before the bye week. And then you come out of the bye and go up to Hines or whatever they call it nowadays.
I think it's a Stencher or something like that.
Yeah. Then you get New England.
Hines Field.
See, this is the problem with a team like Cincinnati, right? So they got this Baltimore, Pittsburgh. Then they got New England as the trap game sandwiched here. This is the type of game that Drake May would come out and throw for 300 yards or so just because they're playing against Cincinnati. Get that hype train going, and you just get caught slipping going into Baltimore. That could happen. I'm not saying it will, but I'm saying that it could.
I don't know who Drake May is going to throw the ball to get 300 yards.
Hey, Kyle Williams, Kayshon Boutte.
It's just going to be a lot of screen passes to Travion Henderson.
And speaking of which, I know we're doing the AFC North right now, but putting Travion Henderson as the 3rd back on the depth chart is heinous. And I'm just
they're not a serious franchise. I told you that. We think we look at all the Super Bowls and the success with 12 was there. The success is because 12 was there. Bill Belichick was a dynamic defensive guy.
We'll get to Bill Belichick later. Damn.
But the core of the core of the success was their ability to stay stable on the offensive side of the ball because of Tom. Because Tom was literally throwing the ball to a lot. He had Edelman for a lot of years, and that relationship worked. Edelman is a dynamic wide receiver for Tom Brady. I don't know if he has that same kind of career with Eli Manning as his quarterback. And Eli used to love throwing the ball around. So the New England train and the Denver train, we're on the same wave there.
All right, so
I think Cincinnati has a good year.
Well, we'll go back real quick. Let's go back real quick. I had to scroll back up because we were talking about at Pittsburgh, at Baltimore in the middle, right? With New England in the middle. Yeah. But then after that game at Baltimore,
Buffalo,
Orchard Park, Buffalo at home, Tua, And I'm not saying like Tua's great, but just saying like that offense, we're talking about a team with a lack of defense. I think Arizona's going to be better. So for me, worst case scenario for Cincinnati is 7-10. That's the worst case scenario based off of their defense. Their best case scenario, I think they could win 11 games because a lot of these teams that we're dismissing them against, we're like, oh, hey, at Buffalo, they usually play Buffalo pretty well. Like Joe Burrow usually outplays Josh Allen when they play Buffalo. They even won that playoff game up there in the snow. The lake effect didn't even matter. Pittsburgh, last year, they beat Pittsburgh in the last game of the season, held them to 17 points when the moon ball wasn't working anymore. But that first time they played Pittsburgh, they lost 44-38. So it's like, you just don't know. Life is like a box of chocolates, I suppose. But I think worst case scenario, 7-10. Best case scenario, 11-6 for the Bengals.
Yeah, I'm a little bit more bullish on the Bengals.
Good for you. I hope it works out for you.
Yeah.
Then you got the Steelers, the steel, not quite a steel curtain, you know what I mean, but still nonetheless. Oh, wrong one there, my bad. So here we go. Let's get the Steelers schedule up on here. So, with the Steelers, I talked about Joey Porter, and getting the penalties. They got Patrick Ramsey there now who plays physical but doesn't necessarily get the calls because he has the reputation now. He kind of has that Richard Sherman thing where you get that little bit of leeway. You got TJ Watt.
Yeah.
Cam Hayward's
those
36.
guys got a nice little leeway.
Cam Hayward's 36, but you know what I mean? He's still getting it done. So, he's a young 36, I guess. You went and got DK Metcalf. You're hoping that Roman Wilson or Calvin Austin can step up this year and be that next receiver now that Pickens is gone. I talked about the running back, Caleb Johnson, but also they still have Jalen Warren, who was Najee's backup. He was the change of pace guy. He'll still be that this year. They went out and got Kenneth Gainwell from the Eagles. So kind of interchangeable, those two in my mind, but Jalen Warren has a little bit more explosiveness. When I think about Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers putting this team together, it makes me think of the dream team. And I'm not talking about Jordan and them. I'm talking about Michael Vick or Vince Young and those guys over in Philly. That's what it makes me think of, where you're trying, the names look good, but I just don't know if the execution is going to be there. So they went and got Jonnu Smith as a part of the Mika Fitzpatrick trade, but they already got Freiermuth, who is coming off of a career high 65 catches last year. You still got Darnell Washington, who at 6'8", I gotta feel like they don't involve nearly enough.
Yeah, he's bigger than the offensive lineman.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So Derek Harmon, he had the crazy draft night, got drafted, and then had to run to the hospital to say goodbye to his mom, unfortunately. So that's the type of thing that a franchise like the Steelers will use, to build him up. They're going to take care of him. He didn't go through that alone. So I think you'll see the best version of him as a rookie. And then I think that, they got Jack Sawyer out of Ohio State later in the draft to go along with my guy, Peyton Wilson, no relation, but Peyton Wilson is a tackling machine. I mentioned 1-11 without TJ Watt. So you got to keep him healthy. 11 and a half
JJ
sacks.
Watt, like I always say.
Yeah. 11 and a half sacks last year, 6 forced fumbles last year. Patrick Queen running around. They were 7th in points allowed, so they were the antithesis of the Cincinnati Bengals, if you will. But looking at this schedule, Mr. Logical, let me go ahead and get this off, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm picking the Jets week 1. I'm just doing it.
You think it's going to be the Justin Fields revenge game?
I think that I just don't trust Aaron Rodgers, and I don't know if I trust Aaron Rodgers combined with Arthur Smith. You know what I mean? I think
Aaron Rodgers will tell Arthur Smith, yeah, we're not running that. I think he'll just check to something with DK, a little smoke route, just
Yeah.
something like that. We're not running that.
Now, I think we're looking at a 13-10 special here. You know what I mean? So, I'm going, and I mean, and if you
I
want to
just
talk
don't know
about
how
revenge,
I don't know how the Jets generate points
well, I said
because
13-10.
I don't think like I said, I'm just not like I said, the defense for the AFC North in general is their bread and butter. All four teams tend to play a great physical defense. Cincinnati was an anomaly last year, but their offense was super dynamic and they were physical and just big and everything else. They talked about, you play a game against any team in the AFC North the next week, you could be hurting, carrying over the beating from the week before. I'm not sure the Jets have the anything.
Well, don't forget, you brought up
going to
revenge.
lock in revenge for both of them.
Yeah, for both
Aaron
of them,
and Justin.
Yeah.
But I think Justin's going to run himself into a series that he doesn't play because he doesn't go out of bounds when he scrambles. Like I said,
they also
don't
have
understand why
Brees
he doesn't
Hall.
throw the ball.
They also have Brees Hall and Braylon Allen. They also have Garrett Wilson. So I mean, it's not as if the Jets are.
They're going to call 20 pass plays in the first half, and Justin Fields is going to run on 6 of them. It just he was doing it at practice where you can't get hit. They were showing the highlights. I was scrolling through Facebook and I was like, because I watch a lot of like the random highlights, so I was getting some Jet highlights. It's like you're showing quarterback wearing red jersey at practice scrambling where he can't get tackled and everyone's cheering. It's like he can't get hit.
He's got to practice because he's going to have TJ Watt and those dudes on his ass. So that's called practice for real.
Yeah, and I thought Justin Fields had a real good shot. I thought he didn't get a fair shot in Chicago, but in the same sense, I also felt like he didn't take the appropriate passing shots that he should take. Like Lamar runs, but Lamar also throws for 40 touchdowns.
Yeah, and he fumbles when you need him most. But anyway,
it happens to everyone.
So they get Seattle in week 2, so another revenge game, right? DK going up against the old squad. You go to Foxborough, then you go overseas before the bye week. So one of the things that I don't like for the Steelers, I don't know if I like their bye week being so early. Like I think that
older team.
Yeah, like if they had a week 8 or a week 9 or something along those lines, I might feel a lot better. So
now they're playing 13 games in a row without a break.
Yeah, and then you're coming out of the bye with back-to-back division games, and no matter how bad people think the Browns are going to be, the Browns get up for the Steelers. They're always going to fight the Steelers. Then they go to Cincinnati, they play Green Bay. For some reason, Pittsburgh can't beat the Colts, but I think that changes this year. Yeah. They go out to the West Coast, get Cincinnati again, go to Soldier Field, then it gets real. Buffalo coming in at Baltimore, Miami at Detroit. So, it's one of those things, right? We were looking at this. I don't know if it was last year or it might have been the year.
Last year they had the back half of their schedule was very
tough. That's what it was. When they had everybody was coming off of a bye, they were having 10 games in between, 10 days between games, but it was here's Philadelphia, here's Kansas City. So, that's kind of how this schedule kind of unfolds as well. And last year, I did the thing where I was like, hey, Tomlin ain't going to get the wins. The streak is over. And, I mean, I feel that way again, but I got burned, so I don't want to say it. But so I think as I look at the Steelers and what I think of Aaron Rodgers at this point in his career, I'm going to say that the Steelers' best case is 10-7.
That's still very good.
No, it is. But worst case scenario, that could be 6 or 7 wins. You know what I mean? It just depends because we know.
I think there are 9 wins at least. And the problem is, if you look at the back half of the schedule, between the Chargers and then week 17, who's week 18?
Baltimore.
Depends on the playoff standing, whatever the case may be. I just think that Cincinnati to the week 11 to week 17 it's a tough stretch where 2-4 isn't crazy, and you could be playing good football and go 2-4 in that stretch. Because
Right.
Cincinnati could be humming. Buffalo is going to be Buffalo.
I
Baltimore
mean,
is going to do
luckily
their
Buffalo's
thing.
coming to you.
Yeah. You're at Detroit. Once again, you can neutralize the speed if you get it early, but if they get in a groove with the play calling and getting the speed between Gibbs and James Williams and then the power with Montgomery, it could be a tough stretch. So I think you can play. You could be, in my opinion, they could be 5-1 after Cincinnati.
Well, I was going to
Potentially
say
5-0 before they play Cincinnati.
Well, I was going to say
and then
realistically,
finish the season 2-4, and it looked like they had a terrible season like last year.
No, realistically, 6-0 is definitely on the table. Realistically. And that's just, I mean, I know I said what I said about the Jets, but realistically, 6-0 is on the table. You know what I mean? Then you figure you get Green Bay at home. So, like, I don't want to be, oh my God, they're going to be 7-0. But I mean, it's not that.
That rarely happens in the NFL.
Right.
We have the AFC North. Yeah, we got Baltimore winning 12 or 13 games.
And
the likelihood that Pittsburgh's out here running 6 or 7 in a row.
And what is it? And what is it? It's another revenge game, right? So,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I imagine Jordan Love's going to be pretty motivated for that game too. You know what I mean? Like Aaron Rodgers feeling disrespected that you drafted me or whatever the case may be. Like he might got, at least I would, because I'm petty like that. Jordan Love might be past that by now, but
I think the $250 million that he has coming to him, let bygones be bygones.
Nah, it's up with that shroomed out motherfucker for me. You know what I'm saying? And then
listen, if you got another podcast and you got another podcast partner, then I start a new podcast and I'm getting paid $250,000 a year. I'm like, you know what? Mike really pissed me off, but this 250 is really making it easy to watch this podcast. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure that 250 million. It's like, all right, bring in Aaron.
Nah, son, it's up for life. You know what I'm saying?
For life.
It's up for life.
I think that's the thing with the Steelers. I think their front half of the schedule is very manageable. I mean, 5-3 is probably worst case scenario in that first 8, but I think 6-2 is very reasonable. But just that stretch between week 12 and week 17, so like I said, you can be playing good football and still go 2-4.
So realistically, the difference between the Steelers and the Bengals making the playoffs could just be how did you do against the NFC North?
How'd you do against the rookie quarterback?
Which one of y'all beat Detroit?
The two second-year quarterbacks, how'd you do against them? Because they both have question marks. Caleb Williams with his accuracy and throwing the ball on time, and J.J. McCarthy, we just haven't seen him throw more than 30 passes in a game in over 2 years. You think that
Caleb Williams' nail polish determines how accurate he is? So, like, if he has black nails, he's in a bad mood. He's a little off. But if he has red,
he put "fuck Utah" in his fingernails and he couldn't beat him.
That's true. And so, not only couldn't beat him, got
3 times.
Got destroyed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, so I guess we'll talk about the Browns because we have to. But I don't think
they're the most I think Jerry Jones is upset at the press that the Browns have gotten. I think that's why I think Skip Bayless has been talking so much about the Browns, just because it's up there with the Dallas Cowboys.
Skip Bayless just trying to get relevancy back. That's why he's trying to hook up with Gilbert Arenas.
Gilbert Arenas is another odd version.
Clutch agent.
Yeah, it's crazy. You gotta love it.
What I'm saying? But here we go. The Cleveland Browns. We thought that Myles Garrett wanted to be a winner, but then he decided to stay. So he's not a winner.
The man won at life.
You brought up Mason Graham. They got the cornerback version of Chris Olave with Denzel Ward, because they both get knocked out all the time, and they both went to Ohio State. So there's that. You know what I'm saying? Quinshawn Judkins, it sounds like he's going to be signed. I don't know if he's going to make it in time to play this weekend, because, he had the off-field situations going on as well. But Jerome Ford is the home run hitter here, and of course, in the draft, I was big on Dylan Sampson. You got Jerry Jeudy, who I like a lot more than Steve Smith does.
I like Jerry. I've always liked Jerry Judy. I don't know what the deal was with him and Steve Smith. I think he just didn't like Steve Smith's criticism, but I've always liked. I thought
Steve Smith was like, yo, that's just another guy. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like Jerry Judy is one of those guys that could have a 14, 15-year career just based off his route running. Like, he's not going to be the guy that blows by you and, does the Tyler Lockett thing or whatever, but he will run that route. And those guys.
Stephon Diggs. Those 3rd and 7. I need you to run this 8-yard route. All right, got it. I'm stopping on a dime. I'm turning on the hip.
Get you 8.5. Yeah, you know what I mean?
I'm turning upfield in an awkward way that I shouldn't be able to do, and I'm going to be ready to catch this pass. I've always been a fan of Jerry Judy.
They still got Njoku, who's in a contract year. I'm shocked though. Like, I would have thought that the Browns would have probably made more of a receiver move. Like to get another receiver to go across from Judy. There's also, as interesting as the Browns are that you were talking about, there's been talks that the Browns might be, Deshaun Watson might be ready to go mid-season. So it's like this thing could get off the rails real quick.
Absolutely not. If I'm Deshaun Watson, like, listen, man, just keep hitting that bank account every Tuesday. I'm going to keep rehabbing. Don't worry about rushing me back.
So here you go, Mr. Logical. Here's another question for you.
Let's hear it.
How many rushing touchdowns did the Cleveland Browns have last season?
6.
They had 8.
8 was going to be my first guess.
So they need to obviously flesh that out, if they're going to be starting Flacco, have that balance going on, because you don't want to, like, even though he's the vet and all the things that you were saying earlier in this episode, you don't want Flacco to have to throw it 38 times, I would imagine. So you got to get the run game going. The defense, I talked about Denzel Ward and his concussions. Like, the next one, he might retire. Martin Emerson fell back to earth last year. Jeremiah Owusu, I ain't even going to try it.
So Lega, right?
Cora, I ain't even going to try it. But he's out for the year. He had a neck injury. They brought in Carson Swearinger from the draft. They got Jerome Baker, who is a pretty decent player, but he played on 2 teams last year. So leadership-wise, besides Myles Garrett, they still have Grant Delpit, who I think is a pretty good player, damn good player. And they brought in Malik Collins from Cleveland to kind of plug up the middle a little bit as well. So when you look at the overall Cleveland Browns roster, it's not a bad roster. It's just literally, and I'm not trying to say they're a quarterback away, but they have talent on this
They're
roster.
Quarterback away from stability. They're quarterback away from they're quarterback away from a fan thinking that their year could be better than last year for sure. They have quarterback away from an above average year. Like, if they definitively had the quarterback position figured out, I don't know why they didn't properly address it.
They're a quarterback away from taking their glasses off and saying, we better than Cincinnati. You know what I'm saying? That's what they're a quarterback away from. You know what I'm saying? Like, they
could be like we talked about the NFC North last year, had a lot of good teams, 3 teams with, over like 12 wins. They could have been in that mix. I just think the way they handled the press they received from something they knew they were going to get pressed for amazes me. We knew that Shador was going to come with the eyes and ears and the thumbs of all the people who somewhat kind of maybe a little bit watch football. Everyone's going to have an opinion. Either he was going to be blackballed because he was black. He slipped to the 5th round because of conspiracy against him. They thought he was too arrogant. His dad is too cocky. I'm like, his dad is an NFL Hall of Famer. I don't think they will look at his son and be like, we need to teach him a lesson. Knowing who his dad is,
people like Deion. I mean, he is like brash and all that.
Favorite player.
Yeah,
but he's been brash since the draft. He's been brash since before he got drafted. He told the Giants, I was going to ask for so much money they're going to put me on layaway to pay me. He said that before he took
Deion
the NFL snap before training camp.
Deion was the original Manny being Manny.
Yeah, he was already on one. So you think that you were going to teach his son a lesson like that? It just so that narrative is ridiculous.
So
If people thought he wasn't going to be a good quarterback, that's fine. But when they drafted him with Gabriel, you knew this was going to be a media circus, and you didn't prepare yourself for it. And then they treated everyone as if they should make this big of a deal about it. It's like, are you serious? You know who you drafted? It's like if you brought in Tim Tebow right now. It's like, oh, Tim Tebow hadn't played forever. Like, yeah, but you brought in Tim Tebow. You know the attention that comes with drafting or bringing in Tim Tebow or any, like, if someone brought back Antonio Brown right now for a tryout, it would be like, what are you thinking? Because certain things in sports have been, when you galvanize and polarize people that much, it was going to, and they weren't prepared for it at all. And they seem to not get better since April.
And I got 5 words for Joe Flacco if he thinks that he's going to lead this team to something. Put your glasses back on. So week 1, I would not be surprised, if Cleveland comes out and wins this game against Cincinnati. You know what I'm saying? Because to your point, you know what I mean? As long as the defense can keep the game relatively close, Flacco's not going to try to outduel Joe Flacco. You know what I mean? So like that game against, that game. I mean, that's what I meant to say. Yeah, and because I mean, going back to last year, and I mean, I know that last year has nothing to do with this year, but just going off of evidence, I mean, they lost week 1 at home to the Patriots. You know what I mean? And I think that this Browns team might be better than that Patriot team. Like Joe Flacco is better than Jacoby Brissett. So, and we talked about Joe Burrow's slow starts. So I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not picking it, but I wouldn't be surprised if Cleveland won this game on Sunday. But then they go to Baltimore. They get their 3-pack of NFC North, the 3-pack edition.
Yeah.
Before they go to Pittsburgh here. So, Mr. Logical, first, so they got 8 games before the bye week. What's their record after those 8 games?
I don't want to say they're 0-4 after the first 4 weeks, but I'm leaning that way.
Picking them to beat Cincinnati, huh?
No, 0-4, not 4-0. 0-4. Just because I don't know, like,
it's the NFL.
It's the NFL.
I mean, they beat Baltimore last year with Jameis.
And that was a fluke. That was a very fluky game. They had they had a bad pass interference. Maybe Cedric Tillman is the number 2 guy that could really, shake things up. I don't want to say they're 4-0, so I'll say they get one of the NFC North teams. I'll say they're 1-3, 2-3.
I just need Cedric Tillman
3-4. What we got? Week 8.
Week 8 is New England at New England.
All right, they're 4-4 going into their bye week.
So like, I just need Cedric Tillman to be in Knoxville on September 13th because, like I always like to say, the last time Tennessee beat Georgia was him catching that Hail Mary from Josh Dobbs. So I need you in the building. I want some upsets, baby. But yeah, so I can see my instinct tells me 2-6. But that's just because of how
I don't think they could be that. I don't think with a defense that has the playmakers that they have, that they can lose. Like, the defense is going to steal them 1 or 2 games on a bad offensive flow. Like, I just feel like I think a bad Jordan Love game gets you 2 picks and you beat Green Bay unexpectedly.
Yeah, I mean, and we have seen Cleveland beat San Francisco there, in the last few years.
Yeah, I see Minnesota being just kind of completely overwhelmed with the young quarterback, even with Justin Jefferson out there and Addison and
that is an overseas game.
Overseas, and Miami and New England. I just feel like the TJ Watt running into the face of Tua all game long is just a likelihood.
And then week 10, I'm going to be the only person in America excited for this Browns-Jets game. I'm going to be glued to my TV watching this riveting mess of a football game.
And I'm going to show you StubHub tickets that week. They're going to be like $38. You can sit behind the end zone.
Then they get Baltimore.
Happens every year, especially if it's a little chilly that day.
Yeah. They go out to Vegas, who Geno Smith could have one of those games, and play into their
One
hands.
touchdown, 3 picks. Yeah.
Yeah, they get
2
San
picks and a
Francisco at
fumble.
home. They get the rookie Cam Ward. They go to Soldier Field, which the weather isn't going to affect them. Then they get Buffalo at home. Close out with Pittsburgh and at Cincinnati. So, best case scenario, worst case scenario, what you got?
I mean, like I said, I got them 4-4 after, and then Jets.
Oh, my bad.
I mean, worst case, best case 9-8. Worst case, I mean, like 6-11. I don't think they're going to be that bad. I think the defense. So I'm going to go about 8-9. I just think that at some point you're going to have to be able to score points in bunches without the short fields, without the muff punts or things like that. Things that tough defenses tend to cause. I think you're going to need games where, the Baltimore is probably not going to turn the ball over. Buffalo's not going to turn the ball over. San Francisco, if they're back clicking, they're probably not going to turn the ball over. So it's going to have to be, you're going to have to make stops, get the punt at the 22-yard line and march it 78 yards into the end zone. Like, I think you're going to have to do that consistently. I don't know if they have the offense to do that. So I think there's going to be some games they're just going to be doing.
I'm going to go worst case 5-12. I'm going to go best case 9-8. And that obviously means that they at least, in my mind, that means that they at least split with Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. Maybe they get swept by Baltimore still, but then they pick off a Green Bay.
They play the AFC North well. I think like the win percentage over the last 6 years, Cleveland probably has the best in division win percentage.
Well, it's that whole familiarity breeds contempt. They just know each other. They play each other twice a year. So, it's a little easier to.
And I think one game against, I think it was Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh forced 4 turnovers against Cleveland or something.
It was 6, I thought. That was the Monday night game where Nick Chubb got hurt.
Yeah, so they just kept forcing turnovers.
I want to say TJ Watt had like a fumble return or a pick 6, and then there was another fumble or pick 6 that went,
they just kept getting the ball inside the 30. Multiple times throughout the game. So those kind of games happen in the AFC North. Granted, that was for Pittsburgh, but I have a feeling that Cleveland can have that same kind of game, especially if the offensive line of Cincinnati isn't clicking. I have Cincinnati probably 11-6, but that can easily go back to that same 9-8 that they've been running with the last couple of years because they
just
can't block up front.
They're going to stop. Yeah. And then, so of course, we're going to do the AFC West on Friday. But now football is all the way here because in less than 2 days, Lincoln Financial Field is going to be rocking, ready to boo Santa, ready to throw batteries at people. The Eagles out in full force as the Dallas Cowboys come a knocking. So, of course, as I look at the schedule, I thought about this, long and hard. And I could not for the life of me figure out why. Me and you had a discussion about how I would like to see a Super Bowl rematch to start the season.
Yes.
But if you're not going to give me that, and this is just me, not saying it because of that, but how do you not go Philly, Washington to start the year? That's what I was thinking. But I guess you got to get Dallas in there.
The rising star versus the super. Yeah, I felt the same way last year. I thought it should have been, especially when Houston was on Kansas City's schedule. I'm like, that's your opener. Because I look at it like this. If one of the teams is a team that everybody watches, that has the athlete that gets a lot of the attention, you want to put that up against the up-and-coming rising star that's in a position to be the next version of that guy.
Right.
So I think we got one Peyton versus Eli to start the season. I think we got that once, at least in season, no, maybe a couple times. But a Tom Brady and Trevor Lawrence.
Uh-huh.
We're going to watch Tom Brady Now give me Jacksonville, team that sometimes has to threaten with blackouts. In this case, like you said, Philly versus Washington, you got the young gun. They met in the NFC Championship game. They're probably like the new media darling.
You still get
Philly
your division game.
You get your division game. Philly's a big bad boy on the block because you can play Dallas, Philly anytime throughout the year, and it's gonna do numbers.
Yeah, that could be Monday Night Football, Thursday Night
Monday
Football.
night, it could be
a Sunday
it could
night.
be NFC game of the week at 1:00, and it's gonna do numbers. 1:00 on Sunday. So I just feel like they.
But
just
I was
lack
also
of creativity in that decision. I didn't.
But I was also thinking about it from the standpoint of screw the Cowboys. But I'm like, damn, that's a tough game to bring Dak back for his first regular season action, coming off the injury that he had. But then I was like, fuck the Cowboys, man. But
any game's gonna be tough when you.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like,
you rip your meat off the bone like you're eating a rib.
That's just rough. I don't see a way that Dallas wins this game. Because one, and take the Dak injury off the table, but Dallas, I don't know if they're going to have the balance necessary to beat Philly because, their running back room is just a bunch of young and mid. Javonte Williams never came back from the injury the right way. You got Jaden Blue is hurt. You got Deuce Vaughn, who's like Rey Mysterio's height. You got Phil Maffa, who they put on the practice squad. So, they're not going to pass their way to say 27 points against Philly.
Yeah, you're not throwing all over Philly against Philly.
Yeah.
I mean, you got the young guns at corner, Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell. You got Reed Blankenship in the back, linebacker core. We know somehow G.I. Campbell slipped to them. Yeah, they did lose a lot in defensive front. I think they still got Vic Fangio, so he could just play the Super Bowl tape to all the guys who are in the building now that is new. Like, listen, see that? I did that. That guy's the future GOAT. Look what I did. So when I say the play call, do the goddamn play. And it will work. Yeah. We rushed 4 guys all night long and got home. Pick 6 touchdown, another interception. We were up 40-6 before they started moving the ball because we pulled our starters.
See, and that's how Dallas.
They have that going for them,
and that's how Dallas wins this game. The things that you just mentioned, pick sixes, they have to just force. But now, their best pass rusher is gone. So now who's going to get the pressure on? Because I figured that Micah Parsons made everybody else's job a little easier. So now without him, who's going to be the leader? Is it Dante Fowler? You got Deron Bland, who they just re-signed this week. But
Jerry was giving out money.
I know.
He was giving out money like Leonardo DiCaprio on the yacht, just fun coupons everywhere.
But then you still got Diggs, who ain't never met a big play he didn't want to give up.
Diggs is out of there, man. He was doing the same thing Micah was doing. He was wearing his hoodie on top of his jersey. He out of there.
Yeah, he's the next one. So lack of run game, lack of pass rush potentially, what those linebackers going to look like, so I expect a full serving of Saquon because I know AJ Brown's a little banged up, so Jalen Hurts isn't the type of quarterback and they don't run the type of offense that he's going to throw 38 to 40 passes anyway.
The Cowboys are at a disadvantage at the line of scrimmage. Most teams are going to be at a disadvantage against Philly at the line of scrimmage. But with no bona fide outside pass rusher and the RPO option from the quarterback and running back, the fact that the quarterback doesn't throw it a lot, so the tight end gets a lot of targets, and Devontae Smith doesn't drop the ball if you get it near his hands. And AJ Brown is a linebacker playing wide receiver. So if you because at some point you're gonna have to get out of whatever. You're not gonna run a lot of two deep shells against them because they run the ball so much. So you're gonna have to have a safety in the box to help tackle Saquon, and you're gonna run a lot of cover 3. So that means essentially whoever the cornerback is on that side with AJ, it might just be go routes. because it won't be any help over top because you can't go too high with a team that runs as much as Philly does because they run with everybody. Everybody's going to get the ball.
So just out of respect for the division part of this and the hate part of this, because my initial instinct was like 31-10 Philly, but said I ain't going to do it like that.
You might be on it.
I think I'm going to go 27-17.
What's the move? What's the vibe in Dallas right now? You think they feel optimistic going to their season?
No.
Just if you just think about the way the owner treated their star player, the way people feel about it, because no matter what, that's his money, that's his contract, but the way it was done publicly, the way he didn't take care of them, the way he, granted, yes, he's paying these young men millions of dollars. But if you're negotiating, we're negotiating. Don't negotiate for TV clicks and microphones and cameras in your face. Negotiate with me so we get a fair deal so this team can be successful. I don't think people in Dallas feel like the team's successful. I think they just feel like, you know what? I'm going to use a star in my helmet to launch my brand, and then I'm going to get a hell about a Dodge, and I'm going to go to a real team.
See, the Cowboys fall on my how the hell did they do that scale? You know what I mean? So you got Dallas, Notre Dame, the Yankees, the Florida Gators, Miami Hurricanes. Like, there's just these teams that you count out, and somehow, some way, they just sneak up on you. And like I said, I don't think Dallas can win this game, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than the experts think.
I just don't say that. I mean, I feel, I know you know how we feel about feelings and everything. I like Pickens. I like CeeDee Lamb. But both of them will sulk if they're down 21-0 and they haven't gotten targets. Like, neither one of them are going to be able to go to the other one and be like, all right, dog, let's lock in.
And that is a possibility.
And we saw A.J. Brown on the sideline with the book, and he was obviously frustrated, and he said his piece. But I'm pretty sure Devontae Smith isn't going to go over there and stoke that flame. I think if Devontae talked to him, I think he would say, man, let's lock in. This next drive, blah, 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 whatever, and get his head back in the game. And I'm not sure his head was ever out of the game. Did you see how he played throughout the season? And he launched that guy's book sales through the roof. But I just feel the Dallas sideline is more likely to implode very early. I'm talking third drive, middle of second quarter. The new coach has zero.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, this is going to be a bad week for Dallas.
I'm looking forward to it. And then, of course, Friday night over on that shitty field in Brazil, you got Patrick Mahomes leading the gang. Not Dylan Raiola. It's actually Patrick Mahomes.
That cosplaying stuff is outrageous. He has to stop. He even jumps like him.
You know what I'm saying? Leading the
gang.
He
does that too?
Yeah, he did that the other night in the Cincinnati game. But they play the Chargers, a division game, so I don't like that. I don't like the division game going across like that. Give me
is it a
Vikings
home game for
Browns,
LA?
Not Vikings and was that?
Is it the home game for LA though?
I believe so.
Okay, because the SoFi Stadium is such a mix of fans anyway, so they don't really get a home field advantage. But if it was the Kansas City home game and you took away a division game from Arrowhead, that would be stupid. Yeah, so I imagine that it must be the Chargers must be the home team.
Yeah, because I know the Rams open up at home against the Texans as well. So,
but what I'm saying is I don't think the Chargers have a home field.
No, they don't.
Advantage. You want that with a division game, and I get it. But if you're going to fleece a division game away from a team, the Chargers, the Raiders, or the Rams are the team you could do because their fields. It looked like the overseas games anyway. When you look at the audience at those games, it's all different jerseys. Like you and I with these two different colored jerseys on, flooding the stadium.
Yeah. So this game, I ain't gonna lie to you, it confuses me. It really confuses me. Because, Kansas City, 7 straight over the Chargers. The last couple of times that they've played the Chargers have been on the brink. Even if we go back to last season, the first game at home, the Chargers started out 10-0. And then of course they ended up losing that game. On Sunday Night Football later in the season, the Chargers, had a lead in the fourth quarter, and then Harbaugh did his Mario Cristobal thing where he was just going to run. And then Kansas City ended up getting a field goal, winning 19-17, I believe it was. So I say all that to say the Chargers are right there. And before Rashawn Slater got hurt, I was going to pick the Chargers to win the division. And I still might, but we'll see. But
yeah. So if the Chargers are right there, one right tackle going down when you drafted one left tackle going down when you drafted Joe Alt, who's a mountain of a man, that right tackle the year before. Just move him over to left tackle. You should be.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
If you're right there, I don't think they're right there.
Yeah, I think they are. You know what I mean?
From the third in the division.
From the standpoint of, you know what I mean? Like, I think they're better than Denver. You know what I mean? I think they're better than the Raiders, obviously. And, like I said, they're right there on Kansas City's heels. And it's not as if Kansas City has looked dominant over the last season and a half or so. Like, they've been squeaking by because, one of your comments or one of your sayings that I love is when you say, I'm going to butcher it, but basically, like, good luck happened to whatever you say. You know what I'm talking about.
When you play with skill, good luck will happen.
That one. That's the one. You know what I mean? So that's what Kansas City has on their side. You know what I mean? Is that in these tight games, they're going to make the right decision. They're going to make the extra play.
They're going to block the field goal.
Right.
Just because they notice this guy's stepping back too early all game long. We're going to save this block.
If Mahomes is 17 for 31 coming down the stretch with 196 yards, he about to be 18 for 32 and get the first down that's needed to ice the game. The one thing that Kansas City I'm still waiting for is a full healthy season out of our guy Pacheco.
Yes,
he just gets hurt so much.
He runs angry.
But I like what the Chargers have because before a lot of these games that Kansas City beat them, they were relying on a whole lot of Austin Eckler, catching the ball out of the backfield, and they didn't really have a suitable backup. But, they went out and got who I thought was the best running back in the draft, Amarion Hampton. They brought in Najee Harris to be the tough guy, run between the tackles, get the tough yards. Lamb McConkey took off last year. So I think that the Chargers are going to win this game. I think that this is going to be one of those games that I gotta hope that Harbaugh has learned his lesson from being too conservative and just go for the throat one time.
Never gonna happen.
So I'm gonna take the Chargers. I'm gonna take the Chargers 24-19. What up, Residente? It ain't no Waffle House in here. We've been on for an hour and a half, Daddy.
I'm taking Kansas City 27-20 because it's the same problem that plagued the opponents of Indy in the early 2000s and the Patriots in the Tom Brady era. 3rd and 6. Instead of calling the big play and trying to take the shot, you try to run a little draw play. Now it's 4th and 1, and you say to yourself, I don't want to get a ball to Peyton Manning here at the 44, so let's punt it. And then he gets the ball. You think you're going to pin him deep. It's in the end zone. He gets the ball to 20, and he marches the ball right back down the field. He probably hits a 25-yard play off the rip that completely nullifies your whole field position strategy. And then the next time it comes around, you go for it. You don't get it. Now they got the ball, and it happens every time when you're, like it says, fortune's favors are bold. These teams don't go bold when they're supposed to. They go for the 4th down in the 3rd quarter instead of 4th and goal from the 3. Go for the touchdown. Worst case scenario, you got them pinned at the 3-yard line. Don't do some kind of crazy play action run the way you're going to lose yards.
I think it depends.
Roll your guy out.
That the other day. We saw Texas try that the other day, and that didn't work out.
These are professionals. We're talking about professionals.
I know.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, we saw Brandon Staley be professional, right?
But Brandon Staley would go for it from the 29 on 4th and 1 and then kick the field goal inside the 5. That's what I mean. So it's like they're not consistent because they're so concerned about what if we don't get it. I'm like, what if you do get it? What if the score is 7-3, you're up, you're inside the 5, and you can go 14-3 versus 10-3? Because going up 10-3 does what? They get the ball right back and they go down and score a touchdown. So, like, I mean, if you're there, if you march the ball that far and you have a 6'5" quarterback, dynamic, big arm, you paid him $250 million, put him in a position to make $250 million plays. Stop treating him like a backup rookie that got snuck into the game because the lung collapse of the starter. He's been in the league long enough. Take off the training wheels and show like you're a really good coach and you trust. They take the points all the time and they end up losing by a field goal because they take the points. Kansas City takes the lead. And now because they didn't go for it on 4th and goal from the 2 in the first quarter or the second quarter, now they need a touchdown because now they're down 24-20 because they kicked 2 field goals inside the 10 instead of at least going for a touchdown at least once and seeing what happened.
Well, I think it just comes down to, and we had this argument.
Andy Reid coaches like that.
We had this argument.
Andy Reid's won a Super Bowl. Nick Sirianni coaches like that won a Super Bowl. If Tom Brady told Bill Belichick this 4th and goal from the 2, we could get this touchdown, they would go for it then too.
And this spawns one of those.
Yes, he does, Rez.
One of those big arguments that started Sports Reports is ordered. Like the whole Buffalo-Baltimore game. And what I had offered at the time, and I still believe, is that I think it's dependent on the game. I think it's dependent on the flow of the game and all that. Like each game is not created equal. So there are times where that is appropriate and there are times where it's not. So, I think that last year
like they don't do it in the first half and then they try to do it. They don't do it in the first half. They just, they don't do it. And then because they don't do it, and now the score is, like I said, they were up 10-0 against Kansas City, end up losing that game. Sometimes you got to just say, you know what? My guys are better up front than your guys. You don't have to do it every time. But if I'm up 7-3, we early in the first half, it's like, if you're not going to get another opportunity, you take the points, take the lead, you play defense, you play field position. But that early on in the game, if you get an opportunity to go up 14-3, inside the 5, I'm not saying from the 11 and it's, 4th and 2. Like, yeah, go ahead, kick that. But like you getting 2 yards is different between 3 points and 7 points. I figure that 6 feet can't be that insurmountable in that situation when you made it that far down the field.
Well, I know that Harbaugh had a moment last season as well. Monday Night Football against the Cardinals. I don't even know why that was a Monday night game, but it was Monday Night Football against the Cardinals.
Got to get the West Coast some love.
And that was what kind of played out, was that Harbaugh was being conservative. They had the lead. He was being conservative, ended up going for the field goal instead of, a 4th down. And then the Cardinals went down, got the field goal, ran the clock out, won the game, So I understand what you're saying, you know what I mean? But I think it just depends on game and moment. I don't think it's just universal that I'm playing the Chiefs, so this is what I'm going to do.
But the thing is, the universal thing ends up being I'm playing the Chiefs, I go conservative. I'm playing the Patriots, I'm going conservative. I'm playing the early 2000 Colts, I'm going conservative. You hear the commentators say it all the time. Oh, you're not going to beat Kansas City taking threes. If you need to take a 3, then take the 3. But if you're in a position where you can take 7, then take the 7. I think people treat it like, oh my God, we don't want Mahomes is going to get the ball no matter what. You can't just keep the ball. This isn't soccer. You just hold it in one end the whole game till the clock runs out. He's going to get the ball back. Your defense already got a couple of stops, especially for a couple of Dan Campbell went for it 3 times unsuccessfully, and he could have gone up 3 possessions by kicking the field goal. That's different. If you're going to kick a field goal to go up 3 possessions, kick the field goal. But if you're only up 3 and you just kick the field goal, you're still only up 1 possession. So the fear you have about them getting points is still there. And if they want to get froggy, they can go for 2 and take a 1-point lead if they wanted to. Most unlikely, but I'm saying if you can go up 2 possessions, go up 2 possessions within reason. Like I said, if it's 4th and 2 from the 9, No. But if it's 4th and goal from the 2, and I got a quarterback that I can get on the edge, I got a big tight end. Whatever I need to make that play happen, he goes 6 tight ends and like on balanced lines. He does all the stuff that he did with Kaepernick. Call one of those plays for Justin Herbert. Get him on the edge. If he's running downhill at 6'5", 235, and he beats a corner at the 1-yard line, I think he has a good shot at winning that battle. I'm going 75-25. I'm just going to rely on my guy in that situation, especially to go up 2 possessions.
As far as a guy like Dan,
that's the difference, right? It's not a matter of just going for it on 4th down, but if you can go up a possession, then because you're up 1 possession. If you go up 2 possessions, I like that idea.
Like I think that for me, like with the Dan Campbell thing that Rez brought up, it did bite him in the ass because they were a half away from the Super Bowl. It did bite him in the ass. But
he should have kicked the field goal and gone back up 17 or early in the 3rd.
He should have, but at the same time,
that was silly.
But at the same time, I was okay with it because that's Dan Campbell. You know what I mean? Like we talk about how people like play Kansas City, get out of character. That's Dan Campbell's character.
But his character was to get in that situation, like I said, being up 14 and getting the field goal. You're in field goal range and going back up 17 because you came out the half up 17 on the road. The audience is shocked. They came back and San Francisco came out the second half ready, fired up.
Maybe
only
some
got
of these
3
coaches
points.
need the Nathaniel Hackett and hire somebody on the sideline to be like,
and they got the 3. They would have gone back up 17. So now you're back up 3 possessions. No matter what, they got to get the ball 3 times. And you've already exhausted maybe about 8 or 9 minutes in the 3rd quarter by that point. That's different than being 8, 9 minutes left in the 2nd quarter to score 7-3. You're inside the 5-yard lines against a team that keeps winning your division every single year because you play passive. You play for overtime. You play for the Travis Kelce when he caught the little over route a couple years ago and ran into the end zone is because they didn't play aggressive to get the points they needed to go up possessions. They just kept thinking and dunking and playing around. Like, no, sometimes you got to slay the dragon. You really got to go out there and unsheath your sword and show something. And they never do. And that's why I pick against them every single year.
Well, I'm going Chargers 24-19.
I'm going 27-20, and 20s is because they won't go over and get them touchdowns.
All right. So then, of course, we close it out by going around the nation. We had some awesome college football this weekend. We had some dumb takes. We had some dumb conversation. We got some
dumbass coaches crying about money.
Yeah, we got dumb polls. And oh, by the way, that's a guy that lost his starting quarterback that's going into Autzen Stadium as a 28.5-point underdog. Give me the Ducks and the points. I'm just saying. But no, I agree with that, Rez. I think that's exactly what it is.
And that's what I mean. If you pay this guy $250, then I need a $250 million play from you against the $450 million quarterback that seems to beat us and everybody else every single year. Like, we got to take one of these games.
Yeah. And so as you can see on the screen, some of the dumb
I agree with that.
Some of the dumb assery that I was talking about is you could just start in the other receiving votes and you see Virginia right there and you go, what the hell is that? So that tells you where this top 25 is.
A lot of writers graduated from UVA. So,
so as I look at this top 25, and of course I hate preseason polls. And so as we were talking about off camera, one of the reasons that I hate preseason polls, is because you were forced to put Ohio State at number 1 because you had preseason polls. Texas came into the season overinflated because everybody liked the name that of their quarterback. They didn't care about his high school competition. They didn't care that 2-5 was up here talking about how awful he looked against Louisiana Monroe last year. They didn't care about how he was running from the Georgia defense as if it was Friday the 13th or any of that. You know what I mean? They put Texas at number 1. And then I also said Texas is the most overrated team in college football history. Not this particular Texas team, but the whole fucking program. But anyway, but the point is,
he was on one, wasn't he? He was on one.
The point is they were number one. They go into Columbus. I picked Ohio State to win. Ohio State won. So just because Texas was number one, Ohio State was number 3, you were forced to put Ohio State at number 1, even though they didn't look so great themselves. And truth be told, even after all that shit I just said, Texas actually outplayed them. They outgained them. There were a couple of fourth downs, that Texas went for that they probably shouldn't have. Arch didn't make a play or two. So all I got to say is take that. You know what I mean? And then second of all, LSU went into Death Valley Memorial Stadium, Howard's Rock, on a Saturday night with the 1-0 T-shirts ready to go. And I don't care what the score said. They beat Clemson. I know that Clemson had a 10-3 lead in the third quarter. Don't care. LSU beat them up, never let them establish the run. The offensive line that I was concerned about for LSU showed up ready with their lunch pails, if you will. So I'm not saying that necessarily LSU should be number 1, but I think they got more right to it than Ohio State does if preseason polls didn't exist.
True. I believe Dabo Sweeney, he was quoted saying something along the lines, it's like a final exam. We got a 65. They got a 65. We got a 58. Basically, like, hey, neither one of us looked really good. But I was like, I don't know. Like, I think you should workshop some of this stuff before you go to the podium. Maybe sit down, eat something. Like,
where's the PR team?
Like, meet the PR team. Have a nice, have a couple of minutes to where you grab something to eat. You look at the stat sheet. You take a breather. Then you go out there, you answer questions. Because sometimes some of these answers that these coaches were saying were pretty ridiculous. Talking about how much money was spent and everything else. Like, they don't have these opportunities as well. I watched the Michigan game. I like that. They look really good.
Man, that guy, Bryce Underwood, he be throwing the hell out that football. Like, he throws a 5-yard slant, and that shit gets there in 0 to 60.
Oh, yeah. Brett Favre, knuckle breaker kind of pass.
Yeah.
Slow down. Like,
hey, they got to go to Norman this weekend, though. Watch out.
Yeah, no, we'll see. You're big on Oklahoma. I'm not. Florida State they look possessed. I can't even front. Because I was out and about and I was kind of running errands because my son's birthday. So I was setting up his party and everything else, 21st birthday to my middle son. So I was kind of running around. I was cooking all his food and I'm getting updates from you. My boy Q, he in the box. He texted me. So he said he was going to be on. He said he was going to be on to talk about Bama and Florida State because he's going to get some of his chest. I don't know what happened. He disappeared. So Q, where you at? We waiting on you. You got the link. Everything's all good.
Talking about a fraternity?
But it's they looked, and I don't know if it was because Bama looked fast, they looked physical, they looked tough. Just the pressure up front from Florida State looked different. And Castellano is proving that Bill O'Brien is not that guy when it comes to cultivating quarterbacks. You got to come to him ready. You can't come on a date with Bill O'Brien talking about, you about to start this business and I think it might gross a couple $100,000 a year next couple of years. Nah, you need to come to the table with this $200,000 already established. I don't have time to develop you. I don't have time to work out whatever you're trying to figure out on the football field. You need to be ready because he sent this guy down to Florida State and he looked dynamic. The way he was moving, the way he was making his quick decisions, the way he was throwing the ball. It's just, I don't want to say Florida State's back, but if you can play that swarming kind of defense and then make timely big plays on offense, you got a shot. You got a shot. We saw Clemson. Clemson wasn't able to hit the big plays.
I was talking about Tony White all off season. And how we got a gem when we took him from Nebraska as defensive coordinator. And how he was I didn't think it was going to happen in game 1 because I was going through the emotions, right? This game started. Yeah. Alabama went right down the field. And I remember I made the corniest joke I've ever said in my life because I was on, in the group. And I said, this run defense is more Swiss than beats. You know what I'm saying? So, Alabama was running it down our throat. There was one of those fourth downs that Brez hates that Alabama took advantage of and shoved it down the throat, went straight down the field, 7-0. And I sat here and I said, "Oh fuck, here we go again," And but Friday when we did our preview, what I kept saying to you was, I don't think Bama was going to blow us out. You know what I mean? They might have pulled away late, but it wasn't going to be a dominating. But the one thing that I held on to was, we're going to score on Bama. We're going to score because Gus Malzahn, because the first thing that I thought about, because you always talk about how you remember this guy coached at this place and all that stuff like that.
It's pretty crazy.
So Gus Malzahn actually recruited Castellanos out of high school, to come play for him at UCF. So there was already a marriage there. Like, I saw you as carrying out my vision. So now that you got him at Florida State, and you don't even have to be the head coach, you could just sit over here and workshop the system and build it completely around this guy without having to do all the executive stuff. Great things are going to happen. So I figured we would score on Bama. But what I don't like after the fact is two things. So I don't like how I've seen the media giving Ty Simpson the smoke that they should have had for Arch Manning, because I think that Ty Simpson played well considering that he was under duress the whole game.
He was running for his life.
Yes,
that 15
the whole game
looked like the same 15 in the Super Bowl. He was running for his life.
And oh, by the way, he got a guy named Brian Williams at receiver that, people compare to Jeremiah Smith. Let me tell you a secret. Ryan Williams hasn't had a 100-yard game since he made that catch against Georgia last year. You know what I mean? So that's first and foremost. You know what I mean? But anyway, Ty Simpson played well, I think, especially considering it was his first game ever. Saying in that environment, like I told you, they took the seats out the stadium. So like the noise is more on top of you now. You know what I mean? And then, they didn't have a real running game after that first drive. So I think he played well. The second thing that I don't like is putting Florida State all the way at 14. You know what I mean? Because like I said earlier when we were talking offline, and I said it earlier on, I think I said it yes. Oh, no, I don't know. But anyway, they put them at 14. And as soon as Florida State loses a game, it's going to be, is Florida State overrated? And it's like, okay, well, you rated them.
You rated them there, yeah.
You know what I mean? But the other thing that I don't like is I'm looking at these received votes, right? And, Auburn went into Floyd Casey on Friday night. And just like I told you, they manhandled Baylor. They made Jackson Arnold look like a functional football player, which I didn't think was possible. They won that game by 2 touchdowns. Whereas you got somebody like, say, SMU at number 17 that beat East Texas A&M. Not the Aggies, East Texas A&M, who doesn't even play FBS. But you had preseason rankings. You know what I'm saying? Then, you got Ole Miss. They beat Georgia State. And I ain't going to crap on Georgia State. They beat Vanderbilt last year, something Alabama didn't do. So I ain't going to crap on them, but it just is what it is. Indiana, they beat Old Dominion. Texas Tech beat, I think it was Grambling it was Kent State or somebody like that. It was somebody real low level. It might have actually been Grambling, actually. But you got them at 24. Illinois beat Western Illinois. You got them at – so what are we ranking on? Because when you do the preseason ranking, you're just looking at rosters, these
Arkansas Pine Bluff.
Yeah, that's who it was. I knew it was the HBCU. And Grambling plays Ohio State this week, by the way. So good luck with that. But it's one of those things where you're looking at the stars on the rosters. You're listening to all the talk on the radio shows, and the media does nothing but groupthink. So you don't want to be the guy that says, I think Illinois is top 5. You know what I'm saying? If you believe that, because they're going to laugh you out the room. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to be the guy that says, hey, Florida State shouldn't be all the way at 14. Put them in at 23 because they're going to say, they beat Bama. Like, yeah, but what the fuck is Bama? That was game 1.
Because they're preseason number 8. Yeah, like I said, I've been a proponent of this, me and you, because you've been a big college football guy, and I was talking to you about it for years. It's like, the first rankings shouldn't come out till after September is done, or 4 full games, which is normally like the end of September. I think you're going to like the 5th game, maybe that last week.
Right.
So
So
play
like,
through September, and then the first week of October, after college football wraps up for September, then you do your rankings. You have enough data to show this is where teams belong. I think that might be more difficult because I think it'd be varied. And I don't believe they want it varied. I think they want a very simple, easy slice of pie, little ice cream on
most
top,
of it is just for us to
little
argue
cinnamon.
and talk
Yeah,
about
that's
the
it.
sport. It makes the sport relevant. But like looking at Georgia, right? Georgia's number 4 right now. They played Marshall on Saturday, and all we were talking about all off season is Coach Charles Huff took half of Marshall's team to Hattiesburg, Mississippi with him. You know what I mean? So they were playing a shell of Marshall. This week they played Austin P, who is FCS, even though they did beat Middle Tennessee State, but they're still FCS. And then they go to Knoxville on September 13th, next Saturday. So if they go lose at Tennessee, Tennessee's going to get credit for beating a top 5 team that probably wasn't a top 5 team. So
But they haven't played anybody.
Right. So when it comes time for the playoffs and Tennessee's sitting there at like 9-2, we're going through the rankings or something like that. If they beat Georgia, people are going to say, hey, they beat top 5 Georgia. You gotta their resume stands up. Like, and then Georgia might be sitting there at damn 7-3.
But even with that being said, they're gonna have to have some kind of preseason template. Maybe they don't release it, but they're gonna have something already built. So after the 4 weeks, it's gonna look a lot like this anyway, where you have Big Ten, SEC, ACC, Big Ten, SEC, ACC, independent, SEC. That's just what it's going to look like anyway. You can interchange the teams how you like, but that's what it's going to be. And then by the time you get down to 16, you'll get your other things. You'll get your Iowa State. You'll get your BYUs. You'll get this Oklahoma's trying to come back. Ole Miss is sitting at 20, but after a couple of good weeks, they'll be up around 9 or 11, somewhere in that range because it's SEC. Utah have a couple of good weeks. They'll get to about 16. Texas Tech could get around 16, 17. Arizona State, somebody loses a game, they'll drop to 23,
Well, this is
24.
going to change really quick because we got action. You know what I mean? You got Iowa coming in for the Cyhawk this weekend to play Iowa State. You got Florida is playing that South Florida team that just busted Boise up last week. But then we were talking about it next week. They go to LSU. The week after that, they go to Miami. They get a bye week, and then they get Texas coming into the swamp. So Florida ain't going to be there very long. You know what I mean?
Florida is my sleeper, so I'm riding with the Gators.
You got Michigan and Oklahoma this weekend, right? So let's just say hypothetically, one of those teams beats the other one, something along the lines of 31-7.
They got to fall out of the top 25.
Was that other team overrated?
Either way, they're going to fall out of the top 25.
You never even saw Bryce Underwood play football. So if it's them that got their ass kicked, what are we proving?
They're going to 26. Whoever loses is out of the top 25. Iowa State, you lose, you're out of the top 25. We talked about it. There is a measure of leeway and legacy and just the benefit of the doubt that's awarded to some organizations and then some schools within like those conferences.
Yeah, Illinois
within those same conferences, they don't get the same leeway. Illinois is not going to get the same leeway as Penn State.
Yeah, Illinois goes to Duke this weekend. You know what I mean? Then, down here in the receiving votes. Why is Kansas State receiving votes? We saw them lose to Iowa State, in a game where they both looked terrible in the rain. But then Kansas State just gave up 45 points to North Dakota the other day. Not North Dakota State, not the national champion, North Dakota. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they don't deserve any votes.
I want to start a movement. Keep Liberty out of the top 25, out of the other receiving votes. This is the second straight season they're not going to play a Power 5 team. You know what I mean? Like, get out of here. You know what I mean? James Madison on Friday. We talked about going to Louisville on Friday. I'm here for that game. 14.5-point spread on that one. Could be an upset alert. Just saying. Why is Baylor receiving votes? We just saw them get punked by Auburn. Who's the most annoying player in college football history, Rez? Let me know that one real quick, and I'll let you know. Bama. I ain't saying Bama shouldn't be ranked per se, but I'm saying Bama shouldn't be ranked. You lost to a team that you were, a 13.5-point favorite against. That, you talked about it the other day, ESPN or whoever gave them a 75% chance to win that game, and they lost. Why are you ranked? Besides the fact that we ain't talking about him. We ain't talking about him yet. I did bring him up to let everybody know that Dylan Raiola is not leading the Chiefs into Brazil this week. But yeah, so that's what I'm looking at this top 25. Oregon beat a FCS team. You know what I mean? And then they get Oregon State, who lost to Cal this week. I don't know what to make of these teams right now. We're all just guessing. But the one thing that I do know, two things that I know. One, we were told that Arch Manning was the second coming. Last year, we were told that Nico Iamaleava was the third coming. And he got bitch smacked all around the Rose Bowl. Stadium that sits 89,000 only had 36,000 in attendance, and the Utes went up there and put 43 on them. Go Utes. And who knew?
Go Utes, baby.
Who knew that New Mexico State was such a haven for great quarterbacks, right? Like Diego Pavia came from there last year. He had a victory at Auburn while he was at New Mexico State. Last year, he beat Bama and then won at Auburn again with Vanderbilt. This year, you got Devin Dampier at Utah. So I guess if you want a good quarterback, just go snatch from New Mexico State at the end of every year.
You want to get quarterback, I'm talking about it a lot and thinking about it a lot because, like I said, my son's a junior. He's playing football. He wants to play college football. Those are his aspirations. These guys are everywhere. The talent's everywhere. The money is whatever the money is being spread around enough. So you might not be a $5 million quarterback going to Michigan, but get a couple $100,000 and 19 to go play football in New Mexico State, Utah, Boise State, some school in Texas, whatever the case may be. And you get a chance to develop. You get the confidence because you can see the difference between Castellanos and Florida State. He got ran off out of Boston College. Did not have a good departure from that school, but he came out home game, 84% chance of winning for Alabama. He's talking slick on his social media, and he backed it up. That's years of playing with confidence. You talked about Arch Manning. There was a couple of those throws where his All-American offensive line looked like an All-American offensive line. He probably could have got 2 more reads out of some of those throws. Like he was like, this is the read. This is the route. I got to throw this right now. He could have looked because it was like the one throw where he kind of like he flicked it like this. I believe it was like early in the first half. It's like he had 3 or 4 yards of cushion in the pocket. He could have stepped up, looked off on another route, but that comes with time and confidence. Unfortunately, his name being Manning, he's been in the media spotlight. What do we get it? Like 4 or 5 good years, probably, because he's a junior. This is his 3rd year removed from high school. Mm-hmm. They've been talking about him since he's a junior in high school. So that's 5 years of just conversation. Not a lot of football.
Yeah,
a couple plays here and there. So it's just time for these guys to build up
before this month is over. So hopefully, being in Columbus, gave him, I guess, a preview, if you will, of what the swamp might be like.
Yeah. I apologize for eating, but my son was baking some bread downstairs.
And then, so
he's going to be a billionaire baker. Shout out to my boy.
So I'm going to tell you where the talent is, Mr. Logical. The talent is in Stephenville,
Salt Lake City.
Stephenville, Texas.
Salt Lake City is where the talent is.
Because FCS, cover your ears, Riz, FCS Tarleton State went up to the United States Military Academy and took down Army. Man, I know they miss Bryson Daly, but damn. You know what I'm saying? Damn. You know what I'm
Sometimes you
saying?
need a playmaker, man. Another team, Alabama State. They played UAB very
UAB,
tough.
Trent Dilfer. Trent Dilfer, yep.
Very tough.
And guess what?
52-42.
Trent Dilfer got
Check,
Navy this weekend, so you know.
listen to this stat line.
He poor Besito.
The quarterback, Andrew Bodie, 18 for 24. Alabama State now. 18 for 24, 312 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks through the air. Followed up with 16 carries, 119 yards, and a touchdown. And they were up by 10 in the third, but you know, just UAB.
Yeah.
No, you won't.
You know,
No, you won't. Off we go into the wild blue yonder.
Oh, you got them started now. But yeah, speaking of Virginia, though, I brought them up earlier. They go to NC State this weekend, so we'll find out real quick. You know, Nebraska got out of there against Cincinnati in Arrowhead Stadium. You know, Sorsby made the dumb pass that bailed Nebraska out. You know, those are the type of games that build seasons, right? You got out of there with the survival win. You know, now you just play the rest of your games. They got Michigan in about 3 weeks, so they got time to fine tune and get it right. And look, give me more Catholics versus convicts. Yes. I enjoyed every single moment of that game. You know, even though Notre Dame never had the lead, you know, the catch by C.J. Daniels, you know, Mario Cristobal tried to piss the game away again, you know, but, you know, luckily the Miami defense was able to get a stop.
College coaches kill me with, like, their ability to just give the game back. It's like you shouldn't have a blown coverage. Like, you know, this happens every week in college football. You get a nice little lead. The crowd's going crazy. Guys are high-fiving fans in the student section. You got to pull them all together. And like, listen, remember your keys. Nothing behind you. Don't be peeking in the backfield. If I call this, this is it. This is the check. Focus. Close this game out. NFL teams close out games. NFL teams rarely blow, unless you're the Falcons, 14, 16, 17-point third, fourth quarter leads. College teams do it all the time because they go down and then they give up one play where they're not paying attention. And now you got a pass from the 25-yard line to a wide open tight end or somebody who snuck down the field wide open. Now the other team's at the 8 or they score. And now the momentum's completely swung. Everybody's falling apart. The student section is sat back down. So I just don't understand why coaches don't really galvanize them, bring them together. Like, listen, focus. We are dominating this game. The convicts are beating the Catholics handily. This quarterback is running in circles. We're knocking them around. We're getting through. We're ripping helmets off when we're making tackles. Don't let up. And they let up, and they damn near blew the game.
Well, I'm glad that you brought up the Falcons because that was my next lead-in. How many times last night do you think Bill Belichick said, I really wish the Falcons would have hired me?
It didn't make sense. The hiring of Bill Belichick didn't make sense. I think he brought in Matt Patricia, another thing that didn't make you too, like, I don't want to sound ageist, but I'm 43. I'm about to be 44 next week. Sometimes I hear new music. I hear TV show ideas or the shows people watch, and I'll watch it for a few minutes. And I'm like, this doesn't resonate with me at all. Like, this is nothing coming in. Like, this doesn't entertain me, nothing. 12, 13, 14 years ago, some of that stuff might have been entertaining. 20 years ago, I would have loved it. Bill Belichick is at the age where it's like, dog, there's no way you're getting anything new out of football. His girlfriend was on the sideline. Since when is we'll call it a family member allowed on the sideline when you're wearing a headset? You're in game mode. And you have some 24-year-old in your ear on the sideline, not behind the rope. She on the little rubber pad that the players are on. I'm like, come on. Like, it's
besides the fact that the coach that they just let go is the same age as Bill Belichick.
It didn't make any sense. I don't know. Bill has never really, struck me as a great recruiter. I can't imagine his conversations with I can't imagine what his conversations are with players. Does he rely solely on like a younger core of his coaching staff? I don't know. I can't imagine.
You know what?
I don't think
Riz?
he'll quit. I don't think he'll quit, but I imagine that it's going to be a tough run for him
You
this
do
year.
now, Riz. You do now. You do now.
I think he's got a couple of them.
But anyway, so yeah, I was watching that game last night, and I was just like, damn, this is like that moment when, you don't know when to let go. You know what I mean? Like, you should have let go a couple years ago, so we can remember you at your highest. This is Jordan with the Wizards.
This is heavyweight Roy Jones.
Yeah, let us remember you.
This is multiple fight heavyweight Roy Jones Jr. Like, nah, dog. Like, when you were middleweight and you were hands behind your back and knocking people out, that's what I want to remember.
If I didn't love this liquid death so much, I would pour some of it out for him. You know what I'm saying? And then, of course, Residente's in the building. So, I don't know if you caught any of the South Carolina game the other day, Mr. Logical, but, how fitting was it? See, this is why people think sports are scripted. Because only against Virginia Tech, only with his daddy in the crowd, could the game swing on South Carolina running a punt back for a touchdown. Like, how poetic is that?
Sports is very poetic. I saw something else. Lenore Sellers gave the game ball to Frank Beamer. So I thought that was pretty dope after the game. Gave him the game ball on the field. I like it.
It's 2 R's, Riz. 2 R's.
You should never put your defense in a position of where there's no safety help on top of Nick Harbor. I don't care if they see it coming. Either I'm putting my fastest corner. You don't have to be my best cover corner. Either you're my fastest corner or I'm keeping safety help over top. There's no way you can expect him to match up man to man. I think they got fooled by the play action. The guy bit on something, but it's just when that happened, I was like, that's it. I'm
tired of arguing about catches too. That catch that Harbor had, in the end zone, the Berrien Brown catch against Clemson. I'm tired of arguing about these things. Like, why is it still so hard to figure out what a catch?
College refs don't do reviews well. Like, I've been saying it for years. I've been saying for at least a couple of years. It's like, I've watched plenty of college games and they don't, they review the plays. The targeting ones, I've seen them mess that up, but I've seen them get it right. They got it right against Florida State.
They didn't get the Michigan one right because their best defensive player is out for the first half against Oklahoma this week.
So, like, that's like, so.
Yeah, the targeting one with the Florida State game, I was like, yo, I mean, I get, right? He launched.
Hit his own guy.
Definitely launched, but I was like, he hit his own guy. I was like, the only reason Ryan Williams
hit his own guy in the back.
Yeah, the only reason Ryan Williams is on the ground because he banged his head off the ground.
Yeah, he hit his own guy in the back. Like, so because he was trying to launch, he wasn't even looking. So it was bad technique, and he should work on that. But
last thing from me, last thing before we get out of here, I'm not going to overreact, and I'm not going to do the thing because, I like killing the boar. I'm not going to overreact. You know what I mean? It was a bad game. They got outplayed. They got outcoached, but they had no idea what Florida State was going to be. Nobody did. So I don't want to get into this whole hyperbole of he's not Nick Saban. He's about to get fired. And, I don't care that his buyout is $69 million. He's out of here anyway. Look, man, at the end of the day, you know what I mean? I said it before and I'll say it again. All money ain't good money. You know what I mean? He was at Washington. coming fresh off a national title game, you know, in year 2, which this is for him in Alabama, you know, and he was on top of the world. And, you know what I'm saying? At this point, I don't know what the difference between Alabama football and UCLA basketball is. You know what I mean? So you got to realize Nick Saban, when Nick Saban got to Alabama in year 1, they lost to Louisiana Monroe. You know what I mean? So these things happen, you know, when a coach, especially now that you have the transfer portal. Florida State had like 50 new players. You know what I'm saying? There was no way you could expect that type of precision or whatever the case may be. So for all of those people out there that are saying that Kalen DeBoer is on borrowed time, you might change your mind when they go into Athens on September 27th. And they beat Georgia 2 years in a row.
I think he's on borrowed time, and I don't know if it's like, I don't think it's this year. I just believe that the allure of Alabama, that was, you know, because of Nick Saban, there's gonna be a lot of recruits that flip. There's gonna be a lot of guys that
Williams might leave.
That's
if Ryan Williams leaves, then yeah, he's in trouble.
I think he's gonna be, I won't say trouble, but I think he's gonna lose some recruits. He's gonna have to grind. So it's gonna be very akin to his life in Washington, where you have to you're gonna have to go to he's gonna have to go to the portal. It just won't come easy. Whereas like right now, Ohio State can pretty much say, hey, we got 20 scholarships. It's 40 of you. Here's 20 knives. Fight it out for these 20 scholarships. And these guys will pick the knives up and fight it out for the scholarships with these knives. I don't think Alabama's going to be able to do that, because I think they looked good. They were moving fine. I just believe like a couple of fourth downs here and there, a big play here and there, a couple of fourth down conversions for Florida State. You know, like it's a 2-possession loss. But if you keep the ball on one of those possessions that turn it over on fourth down, maybe you go down and score. So they didn't look overmatched.
They gave up 236 rushing yards. So, you know, that's very un-Alabama-like. But here's the question. Last one before we get out of here.
Yeah.
If you're Kalen DeBoer, do you actually think about leaving Bama?
You're not like I said, it's gonna be tough for him, but it's like, yeah, no, I don't think you're gonna find a better. You won't find a place to get your bounce back somewhere else. Like you can bounce back. You can have an average year, like they had an average year last year, 9-4 for them as average. You can have another one this year and get 6 recruits or 6 guys in the transfer portal, and then, you know, 6 or 7 more guys that are just 5-star guys, and you're completely turned around next year. You get the hottest transfer recruit, you know, guys, transfer portal guys. Maybe you have to swap out a coach. Depends on how the season goes out, and you're back to Alabama football. Like you just got to retool.
Hey, I brought up UCLA basketball. Hey, I might be interested in UCLA once Deshaun Foster gets fired, but that's just me.
Oh no, not the way. And it's like I said, you talk about the coach leaving. Maybe all money's not good money. Nico is probably getting that same thing. Like it's a cautionary tale. Like, listen, don't overplay your hand.
He ended up with less.
He ended up with less. California taxes. Granted, yeah, maybe being at home is good enough. And maybe I think that 1.2 million. I think with California taxes, man, he's walking away with like 700,000. I think their taxes in 1.2 million is like $500,000.
And watch out this weekend too. You know they got Dan Mullen and UNLV, so I mean, it ain't all good out in the Rose Bowl, and I'll leave it at that. So, ladies and gentlemen, he is the world famous, world renowned, cool, calm, and collected.
Always
logical. Do not bring feelings to a fact fight.
Don't do it.
You know, and of course, I'm down here in the Alamo, your resident unorthodox statistician. I do believe in Joe Hendry. We will be back on Friday with our AFC West preview. We'll preview some college football games. You know, we got to talk about the border war because I'm the only person not in the state of Kansas and Missouri that cares about that game. You know, we'll have more college football for you. And guess what? we got football, NFL football in less than 2 days. Y'all be good out there. Appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us. Salute to you, sir. You know what I'm saying? Clap, clap. You know what I'm saying? We'll be back on Friday. Sports Reports is ordered.
No chaser, no doubt. From the east to the west, it's the order we shout.
Peace.
It's about to go down.